NSFW. I was in bed last night crying because my best friend got married a week ago and I realized that I still love her. When I was younger I was at my friend's house sledding. He had to leave with his family but I kept sledding. I lost control and ran over a baby pine tree they had planted earlier in the year. A tree they had planted in remembrance of my friend's grandma passing away that year. I had snapped the tree when I hit it. So I just stuck it in the snow and left. Weeks later and it warms up enough that the snow melts and the tree falls over. They were devastated when they discovered their tree was broken with no explanation how it happened. When I was a freshman and my stepmom was drinking at the time, she gave me a kiss on lips, full blown, just because she felt bad for all the way she treated me in middle school and got in a wreck while being drunk. Me being a little stupid, I let myself get carried away and made out with her for like a good 10 minutes. My dad popped in. Broke it off right before he actually saw it. Let's just say that was the first person I actually kissed. My sister and I were on holiday together recently and very drunk one night when we got back from the bar. Naturally we started drinking more because we were on holiday. She has the ice cube tray in her hand. Opens the window simultaneously and loses her focus and drops the tray 5 floors to the street, hitting a big guy square in the dome. He looks up and started screaming and shouting in Italian. I live in Rome so I understood he was calling us some bad names. We just closed the window and continued drinking while we could hear this man shouting he was going to come up there and rip our heads off. Please never find me in our scary Italian man. That I hate all my ducking friends for not inviting me anywhere and my cycles of sudden realization that nobody cares about me except for my family. Edit. Holy duck, this blew up. I have 3 real friends who I met in my early days of college. Since summer break started, I've seen them exactly twice. And not for lack of trying either. Every week, I'll shoot a group message, anyone free sometime this week? Wanna do something? Never do. At this point I've withdrawn so much that I just play games and work. I've been lucky enough, however, that I've met some good friends online. So that's good, I guess. It just sucks when people you've never really met are better friends than your supposed best buds. Sorry for the rant. Your post just made me feel like venting. Edit. Holy duck. This kinda blew up. I really appreciate the kind words and sympathies from all of you. In 5th grade I cheated on an exam. My buddy and I were the only 2 people in the grade who got this particular question correct. But I copied him. The worst part was he was considered dumb while I was at the top of the class. So the teacher was convinced that he copied me and he ended up getting suspended. I was too pussy to admit that I was the one who cheated, as my parents would have murdered me if I failed the test, and even worse if I got suspended. I saw my friend's nipple when I looked down her bra the other night whilst nursing her sunburnt shoulders and back. One night I woke up with my mind in a twist. My mom was in the hospital at the time. I had a crazy urge to call them and check on her, but I reasoned not to because I couldn't think of an excuse, so I fell back to sleep. 5 AM I get a call that they checked on her and she didn't have a pulse. I just think there was something I could have done that destroys me to even think about it. I had a friend in the grade below me that was very awkward and generally horrible with girls. One day my best friend and I decided to prank text him from my best friend's phone, as they didn't have each other's numbers, posing as a new girl, one that didn't exist, at school. He asked to see a picture of her face. So we snapped a photo of a girl's face on the cover of the nearest DVD. He completely fell for it. At this point we thought it was hilarious. So later we ended up sending him a picture that was really the crease of my elbow. He fell for it again. Sometimes his texts would get pretty raunchy, but thankfully he never tried to send any pictures. He began bragging at school about how he was hooking up with a transfer student and how they had sex all the time. Obviously, my best friend and I knew this was a lie, but we never called him out on it. Over Christmas break, his mother went through his phone and found all of his texts to this girl and grounded him for the entirety of his break. I felt horrible at this point and told my best friend that we needed to put an end to the prank. But that we needed to do it in a way that wouldn't humiliate him. I wanted to explain things to his mom. But she had a history of overreacting and we were afraid she may get law enforcement involved. We gradually stopped texting as much. And eventually the conversations halted altogether. For the next year, he continued to brag about all the nudes, BJS, and sex he was receiving from the imaginary girl. We've never told anyone about this. So none of our classmates know that he was utterly full of crap. I always tell my wife how much I love her makeup that day. I wish she would stop wearing it, but it makes her happy, so I decide to lie. My GF way over dresses for many things. I do my best to encourage more comfortable casual choices, but in the end, if that's what she wants to wear, it makes her happy and that's all I really want. One time in middle school, I asked to borrow my friend's pen for a moment to write something down. He was pulled out of the room for something a second later, and I just forgot that it was his pen. When he returned to the room, the teacher chewed him out for not having a pen on him. And I think he forgot that he gave it to me as well. I still feel guilty as duck about it. Plus side, I'm the godfather to his son now. I shall seek redemption in his time of need. The only reason I married my first wife was based completely on a lie. We were taking some time apart because she realized she still had feelings for an ex. I knew the relationship wouldn't really work long term. We were young and too different, but the thought of that rejection was too much for my egotistical mind to bear. I was driving and crying one night and ditched my car on a country road, my face slamming into the steering wheel in the process. I instantly had a huge bruise. And when I saw her next, I told her someone walked up to me and hit me in the face while telling me to stay away from her. She bought it. And we got back together. I later proposed to her because, and I quote my internal monologue, if I were willing to lie like that, I probably loved her. She cheated again, emptied our accounts and vanished. After she left, I was destroyed and sank into a decade-long depression. Became an alcoholic and basically tried to suicide via poor choices. I sort of deserved that Dear Big C letter and have no idea how to reconcile that fact with myself. When I was 10, I walked in on my mom and stepfather having sex. Standing up. Their backs were toward the door, so I just quietly backed out and never said a word about it. That was 40 years ago. My dad was having a heart attack in front of me and my mother. She yelled at me to go get help, but I froze in fear. He later died, which caused my mother to become addicted to prescription painkiller and then killed herself, while my brother also killed himself a year later. TL. Doctor, I ruined my family. When I was 4, I had a neighbor who was also about 3-4. My mom worked nights, so I would stay at my neighbors and hang out with their family. For about a year, once every week or so, I don't really remember, I would look her in a room, just the two of us. Force her to take off her clothes and touch and kiss her body. Keep in mind I was young and had no idea what I was doing or what sex was. Fast forward 20 years and my brother decides to look up our old family friends on Facebook. And the girl had recently overdosed on Drew Gus. And her family is now trying to help people with depression. I don't think I'm aggressive at all, but I try to distance myself from people because I don't want to hurt anyone. I'll probably think of myself as a horrible person forever. Only saying this cause throw away and I'm drunk. My dad cheated on my mum with her sister when I was born. My aunt moved in to help my mother with the newborn, that is, me. My mother told me while she was drunk at a dinner party. And started it all off with, you know, I know I sometimes sound like I hate you, but there's a reason. So, even though I love both of my parents, I secretly think they are both pretty awful excuses for human beings. My dad for obvious reasons. My mother for holding it all against me. Edit, I'm so sorry for the earlier ambiguity: my mother was the one who told me. I have never been allowed to meet my auntie, but never really knew why until my mother spilled the beans. Until then, I had been offered the excuse that it was because my mother didn't like my auntie's husband. Turns out my dad is the dickhead. In 7th grade, me and my friend Simon got the password for the admin accounts on our classroom's computer, and our teacher always came in late, so we would just change our grades whenever we got to class before him and the door was unlocked. I'm pretty sure this is what got me into a really good high school because I rarely did homework, but I usually knew the material. This will probably get known. When I was 17, I met this guy and became really good friends with him. We never dated or anything, but I fell head over heels in love. Every moment with him felt romantic. I was convinced he was the one. Life happened, and due to some geographic restrictions, going to separate directions for uni, and just random and important shit, we lost touch after about a year. I told myself that I would forget about him and get over it. It's been over 10 years. And in some ways, I still haven't. He pops into my mind after every breakup I go through. Occasionally I look him up on Facebook. I've tried contacting him several times and we engage in small talk, but it never goes any further than that. I'm now seeing someone who definitely wants to marry me, and I'm pretty much convinced that this other guy has positive memories of our friendship, but no further interest. I know that I need to stop fantasizing and focus on the person I have, but some small part of me is having trouble letting go of the dream of this guy. I've gotten to a point where I've basically resigned myself to the idea that I will never have him, but also that I will never really let go. I see people think I may be crazy. I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I stole my Uncle Max's toupee and I glued it on my face when I played Moses in my Hebrew school play. In 5th grade, I knocked my sister Edie down the stairs and I blamed it on the dog. When my mom sent me to a summer camp for fat kids and then they served lunch, I got nuts and I picked out and they kicked me out. But the worst thing I ever did, I mixed a pot of fake puke at home and then I went to this movie theater, hid the puke in my jacket, climbed up to the balcony and then I made a noise like this, hua 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 hua, and then I dumped it over the side, all over the people in the audience. This was horrible. All the people started getting sick and throwing up all over each other. I never felt so bad in my entire life. Gonna get married but duck it. About 10 years ago I met my now wife and her 2-year-old daughter that was a product of a grade. After falling in love with her, I decided to adopt the little girl under the condition that we tell everyone that we had a one-night stand and I got her pregnant and she couldn't find me for 2 years. I don't like lying about paternity, but I love this little girl so much I couldn't even fathom the idea of her growing up and finding out how she came to be. Now my parents call me the family who wore and make jokes about it a bit, and it pisses me off. But I love her and treat her like I treat my own son. As a bonus, the entire reason I married my wife was to adopt her daughter. We've been married for 8 years now and my daughter is now 12. She never questions it and I will never let anyone find out the truth. It could ruin my life. I've made it a point not to tell any friends I make or girls I begin to love since high school that I had a brother who died in a motorcycle accident when I was 15. There's no good way to bring it up. It only heals good notes. And with girls they feel like they can't come to me with problems because generally it isn't as bad as losing a brother. Opening yourself up can make dealing with things a lot easier. But in my experience, if things don't work out, the fall makes relearning to be self-sufficient at coping absolute torture. That I'm actually really ducking miserable. I really dislike the rest of the family save grandma and aunt. Every day I want to just disappear and there is no one I genuinely love. I don't even know what it feels like to love. And I don't know what I want to do in life and would love to have never been to college. I really just want friends, but I'm a depressed kid who's limited and is too scared to do anything to change it. I can't tell anyone about this because everyone says just to go out and meet people or get help. No car. No buses here. Nowhere to meet people. And a social wreck. We can't afford help. And it just tells me to never tell my mom. The one person I should tell because she'll either say I'm overreacting or feel like she failed as a mother. Edit 1. Thanks for offers guys and gals. Sad to say talking doesn't help me anymore. I used to talk about problems, but it never made me feel better or actually changed things. My mother is very keen with us kids. She's psychologically traumatized due to having married. Extremely conservative parents that stigmatized anything sexual to a weird degree. She was kind of like this with me too, but I broke the barrier she tried to impose on me. She went through IVF with my father to have me and my siblings. I know this because my aunt told me. I knew I was an IVF baby, but my parents gave me a nonsensical health reason as to why. My aunt told me when my mother got married she was fretting over having sex for the first time and she was holding it off for ages. But it just never happened, and several years into marriage they wanted kids. It possibly means my father is a virgin too, as they got married extremely young and dated nobody previous to each other. My father would have had to have cheated on my mother to not be a virgin. Which doesn't seem like something he would do. He's a very loyal person and follows his personal moral code very strictly. I always remember him like this. I think I might be the only person in the world other than biblical Jesus to be in this situation. At first I didn't believe my aunt, but then I realized it connected all the dots about everything I knew about my parents. I don't think I'll reveal this about them to anyone for their own sake. Even when they are dead. What is the best way you've seen a guy hit on a girl? I was at a party. Everyone has been enjoying adult beverages very responsibly. This girl starts spouting off loudly. Double quote. Why is sex over when the guy gets off? Sex should be over when the girl gets off. And this smooth older guy goes. Double quote. See, that wouldn't work for me. Double quote. Why not? Dot. Because then sex would be over way too quickly. She gets this big banana grin and he proceeds to drink his beer like he didn't know it was a joke. When I left the party they were still talking. Watched a guy fall down skiing on the steepest part of a run and he could not stop. Skis, poles, hat and gloves go flying. As he is rolling and sliding I notice he's about to do a bowling ball slam into a girl standing at the bottom. He spreads out his arms and legs and manages to stop, but lying face up. Feet uphill, and she is just looking down at him like WTF. He says, I've been trying to meet you all day. Get a buddy real drunk and tell him to hit on a girl. When he blows it we swoop in and apologize for our drunk friend. Buy him a drink if required too. And boom. In there like swindler. Works 90% of the time. All the time. Met a gorgeous girl early at the beginning of a night party. A few minutes before midnight. I saw her again. And she gave me a frustrated frown. Double quote. Is something wrong? I asked. Double quote. Last New Year's I didn't have anyone to kiss at midnight. And I was really hoping this year would be different. Guess not. I had been drinking. But not so much as to miss an opening like that. Took her in my arms and kissed her up to and through the countdown. At the time it all seemed very spontaneous. But later I learned she had been practicing that line for over an hour. Anyway. This August will be our 20th anniversary. EHH. This story is about me. Was at a party. Talked to this tall thin redhead for not even 2 minutes. Cops show up and shut the party down. Her friend asks her if she is coming home with her that night. So I interrupt her and say, we were just talking and she's actually coming home with me tonight. Her friend turns to her and asks, oh, you're going home with him then? She looks at me and nonchalantly says, looks like I am. Never in a million years did I expect that to work. Then we went to my place and did things. Edit. Oh my frick, this blew up. At a fancy party. I was in heels and a little drunk. Stumbled down the last few stairs on the staircase. Nothing serious. Smartly dressed guy rushes over. Helps me to my feet. Once I'm back to my vertical self. He takes my hand. looks me dead in the eye and says, "I'm sorry. I should have been there to catch you. Panties dropped all the way to China, I swear." Edit. For those asking what happened in the end. It was a work party and I had to catch my ride home. Shortly after I was fired and, sadly, never saw him again. I've seen a lot of one-liners fail in the past. But just a week ago I saw a 13-year-old boy pull one off flawlessly. There happened to be two sets of kids where I work. All about the same age. 11-13 years old. The girls had walked past where the boys were sitting to go to the restroom. Obviously the girls going all together. On their way back a brave boy asked one of the girls to help him. Curious, she asked how. He asked her what type of phone she had because his was broken and he didn't know how to fix it. So she went over and was looking at it, and after not finding anything she asked what was wrong with it. Double quote. "It's broken because it doesn't have your number in it." The girl's dad happened to be passing by at the time and he was laughing so hard I thought he was going to put his daughter's number in the kid's phone for her. Once walked up to a girl and said I owed her an apology. Could I take her out to dinner to apologize? Naturally, having never seen me before, she asked why. Double quote. "I should have asked earlier. Didn't work. But I got a giggle and a blush." One of my close friends and I were playing pool in our dorm commons when this knockout brunette sat down with a few of her friends. Me and my friend both noticed she was glancing at him, but we continued to play pool. A half hour or so goes by and I asked him what he was doing the following day at 6, when I finished class. He turns and smiles at her before telling me, whatever she is doing at 6 inches. Her jaw dropped and she started giggling. They dated for nearly a year after that. It was the smoothest thing I have ever seen to date. I had a friend back in university who was socially behind the curve. He would come off as creepy or just too abnormal, I guess. It made girls uneasy. But he was a decent, fun guy. Anyhow, he had a huge crush on this girl I was lab partners with, and I know she's single etc, so I'm just coaching the guy to approach it halfway normally. I say next time he's with me and she's around, I'll just bring her into the conversation and just sort of flesh him out. Big him up a little. And in an hour when it's all a little more comfortable, I'll excuse myself for a minute and he can casually see if she wants to go out sometime. Later that day I'm at her house, finishing a report, and she gets a Facebook. I'm on her laptop. It's him, and without prior conversation, almost ever, the IM says, "Your boobs are GR8. Dot." It didn't work this time. I do admire his misguided courage, though. Best one I've seen. I was sitting at the bar with a buddy of mine and there was an attractive woman on the other side of him. He says, double quote, "Watch this," and proceeds to turn to face her and introduce himself. They shake hands and weighing their hands touched, he grabs her hand and say, double quote, "Hey, you have such small hands. My DCK is going to look huge." I had to put my head down on the bar because I was almost crying laughing and fully expecting him to get a good ol' slap for that one. Nope. She laughs. And they proceed to flirt it up. Still amazed that worked. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. Yes, he is a handsome fella. But there's no way that should have worked. But God, was it ever hilarious. I was in high school and there was this substitute teacher that was downright gorgeous. Everything a teenage boy could dream for. Like straight out of one of those pornos you watch. So she's subbing my class one day and she says, double quote, "Ugh, I think I lost my phone. I can't find it." So quickly I go, double quote, "Oh, what's your number? I'll call it." Double quote, 943-555-73. OHH, you think you're slick or something? I was so close. Needless to say, I never had a chance. Phone number or not. I might be late to this party, but I have to admit it was probably myself. When I was 5 years old, I literally hit, with a stick, the cutest little girl I'd ever seen while playing in the park near her house. She ran home and told her dad, who read me the riot act. 12 years later I took her to senior prom. And another 11 years after that I married her. I was walking to class a couple months ago when I saw a guy and girl nearly bump into each other going through a tight doorway. They looked at one another and gave their respective awkward smiles. But then both tried to walk the same way around. Twice. They looked again at each other. When the guy put his hands on the girl's waist, picks her up, and slowly places her on the opposite side of himself. I had to walk past them at this point, but when I looked up she was staring at him and blushing. And I saw them talking outside after class and seemed to be hitting it off. My buddy saw a girl standing alone at the bar and happened to notice she was wearing a Star of David necklace. He walks up to her and says, double quote, "Hi. Are you here with someone or are you just waiting for your messiah?" She threw a drink in his face. I don't remember getting hit on very smoothly many times. One time I can remember. This college guy walked up to me trying to get me to help a fundraiser or something, and after the conversation he said, double quote, "Hey, one more thing. Has anyone told you what's wrong with you today?" No. Double quote. Good, because it's not a damn thing. It really made me smile. I don't know if this is the best way per se, but I definitely had something random and very cool happen to me at a bar. Simply put, I was standing next to this really cute girl. I don't know if he saw her checking me out or something, but this guy comes up to us, makes eye contact with her, points at me and goes, double quote, "Man, that's a really cool blazer, don't you think?" She gives me a once over and agrees. He gets his drink from the bar and leaves without saying another word. Instant attraction. Dancing and hooking up happen. Thank you, random awesome woman, wherever you are. I never got the chance to say that. My buddy Will is the master of hitting on girls. This is a story from his college days. He's an eccentric person, and always made paper flowers out of the napkins in our university cafeteria. For over a year, he hid these flowers around our residency hall, and the notorious Rose Kid was born. People talked about the roses around school, and he always hid them in weirder places. The cafeteria women would wear them in their hair, and they adorned the front desk. I shit you not. Multiple girls began collecting entire bouquets of them. Come the next year, my buddy has a lot more confidence, and he starts initiating a lot of conversations with potential lady friends. Frequently, he would go up to random girls and hand them flowers to initiate conversations. One time, we were on the city bus doing the crossword, and he saw a cute girl in front of him. She had a bag of groceries and was looking the other way. He tossed the flower into her groceries and she didn't notice. Minutes later, he dropped his paper onto her bag, and she looked over and up at him. He apologizes, leans over to grab it, and says, "Huh, where'd you get that flower?" He talked to her the rest of the 20-minute bus ride as I sat there on my phone. Back in my senior year, my buddy got really drunk at a club. Being the good friends that we are, we naturally convinced him that hitting on the two beautiful girls at the other side of the club would be the greatest idea ever. He agreed, and we told him that he should totally use this line. Double quote. "Have you ever ridden the Oriental Express? Would you like to? Ah cute, how ah cute." We were both Asian. The drunk motherfucker with a shitty-eating grin strolls up to the poor girls, grabbed both their hands and whispered into their ears. Both of them looked at each other in shock, then smiled and started talking to him. As the girl was whispering enthusiastically into his ear, my buddy puts a finger to her lips, turns around and walks back. Our jaws were on the floor. Double quote. "What happened?" He just goes, "I got hungry. Let's get some Mickey D's." The entire night we were like, "Oh cute, oh cute, oh cute, oh cute." Best cut down while being hit upon. My best bud was heavily flirting with this girl in a bar who completely wasn't interested in him. After putting up with him for far too long, she suddenly spins around, looks him dead in the eyes and asks quite loudly, double quote, "Do you remember your first BJ?" Being completely surprised by the question and having a dozen sets of eyes on him in the bar, he timidly replies, "Yes." She loudly asks, double quote, did you spit or swallow? Tail between his legs. He quietly got up from the bar stool, admitted defeat and crawled away in shame. My parents met when my mom was working at McDonald's in the drive-thru window. My dad pulled up and said, double quote, hey, this isn't what I ordered. I ordered a Big Mac, a fry, and a date with you. Somehow that worked and here I am. He went up to her and asked her if she had dropped some random item he had in his hand. Then proceeded to tell her a funny story and that was it done. I think he showed most guys in the club that you don't need to instantly comment on a woman's physical appearance or grab her bum to win her over. My friend and this girl were talking. Girl tells the guy his joke was shitty. Guy replies saying she looks like shitty and immediately follows up with, see? Now we've both lied and we just look stupid. At a swimming party during summer break, one girl didn't know how to swim. But my friend took her by the hands into the pool. And next thing, he was holding her in his arms, the smoothest, nicest way. All of us noticed that they made a natural couple. As if it were meant to be. My now husband had a bad reputation in college. The mutual friends through which we met called him woman poison. Because he was known for moving from lady to lady. Although I was interested in him, I only pursued serious relationships and turned him down for months. It wasn't that hard. Since I lived 2 hours away and had a career to focus on. One weekend, I heard a knock on my door and on my doorstep was a book he and I had discussed the last time we saw each other. He had driven 2 hours and was about to drive 2 hours back just to leave me a physical copy of something we had talked about. It totally won me over, signifying that he was willing to put time into the relationship. We dated 6 years, have been married for 4 and have a 1-year-old son. I was at a party. The rogue ping pong ball from a game of beer pong rolled into my vicinity. The guy playing came over and asked a female friend of mine if she could pick it up for him, offering the explanation that he had hurt his back earlier. I gave him a look that said, I'm onto you. But I respect the grind. Then he lifted up his shirt and said, no, really? And he had a cast around his torso. I like to think he had the foresight to plan it all out. But in all likelihood the guy probably just hurt his back and wanted to get back to his game. This past New Year's, my friend and I are at a club. My friend had been going around with the line, I'm really shy. Wanna dance? And he was failing gloriously. Now, this friend is usually a master with the ladies. So I pulled him aside and asked him what happened and to get it together. He did. Earlier, we had been talking to some nice young women, one of whom my friend thought was particularly cute. But, by this point she was hitting it off with another guy. So my friend marches on over and says to the other guy, hold my drink. I'm gonna show you how a real man treats a lady. He hands this guy his drink, turns to the girl, takes both her hands, and brings her to the dance floor. The look of befuddlement on the guy's face was priceless. 10 minutes later, my friend was making out with the girl on the dance floor. The guy was still standing to the side, jaw dropped, holding his drink. NSFW, what's the accidentally hottest thing done by someone who wasn't intending to turn you on? I went on a date last night with a girl that I have known for a while. After dinner we go back to her house to watch a movie. She changed out of her pants into shorts. When she comes back down the stairs, she apologizes for looking like a nerd because she had knee-high socks on under her pants and didn't change them. POW. Right in the fetish. I cut my finger on a beer bottle at a party. This girl casually walks by, stops and sucks the end of my finger. without saying anything. Walks away. That happened 25 years ago and I still think about her all the time. Waitress spilled water on my lap and dabbed my shorts with a towel for a good 30 seconds. She got a good tip that night. Final year of uni. Doing a group project presentation. One of our group members was this really cool, pretty Swedish exchange student. We were sitting on the sidelines as one of our other group members was presenting. She leans over and starts whispering Swedish things in my ear. Holy shit. I turned to look at her and she blushes and giggled and apologized saying she got the wrong language. We had a lot of Swedish students in the course so they spoke it often among themselves. She then repeats herself in English. But I wasn't listening because I was too focused on the fact that I was about to stand up in front of a panel of industry professionals with a semi. My wife doesn't understand how much I like when she runs her hands through my hair. I'm a sucker for accents. Had a British girl come into my work for a few days in a row and every time she spoke I melted. I swear. If she had told me to go with her on a killing spree, I'd have gone. My wife knew she was wearing a blazer the next day for a meeting, but couldn't decide what skirt. So she was going back and forth to the closet for different skirts to see in the mirror. But the whole time only wearing the blazer and panties. SZS combination ever. I have a co-worker whom I usually spend breaks with smoking. We were outside last week and she was ranting about some stupid tea that went down over in her side of the office. We work in different departments. Anyhow she ended up getting pretty upset and while a thought has never crossed my mind involving her before, there was something about the way she was yelling and the look on her face that for some reason made me want to take her right then and there. Can't explain it and haven't had a similar thought since. I couldn't even look at her, I just stammered, "I have to go," and went back inside. Unrelated but honorable mention. I used to be a nude model for art classes back when I was in school. One time a girl drew my DCK really nice. That was cool. This one time a girl accidentally touched my arm for a split second. It was exhilarating. I have only experienced the reverse of this. Guy I dated in college was joking around with me in his dorm room. Stole my room key and put it in his pocket. I think it was a haha now you have to stay the night joke. This was years ago. We got distracted and I wound up staying a bit longer. And I guess he forgot about it. So when I finally went to leave, he stood to see me out. And I said, "You have something I need," and slipped my hand into his pocket. Took my key back and held it up with a smirk. His stunned reaction is permanently etched in my brain. I guess since I was, and am, a nerd girl and that was my first time, knowingly, inducing an instant boner. In any case, being a socially awkward nerd girl, I just laughed and said goodnight and left him to deal with it himself. Sorry guy. Oh grave a circumflex a diaresis. My co-worker laid his head on my lap on a long car trip home from the beach. Every minute or so he'd ever so slightly just twitch his fingers in a tiny caress of my knee. Oh my god. I work in a grocery store with lots of university-aged female cashiers and cash office staff. And a very lax stance on uniforms. Lots of yoga pants. A girl at work told me to kneel down and tie her shoe. I'm 6'4", and she's 5'7". I couldn't stand up immediately afterwards. There was a guy I knew liked me, but had no experience with women and was as much terrified of me as he was interested. I hugged him, and he was so ungodly, obviously nervous. His hands were shaking and I could practically feel his panicked heartbeat. And the Vagina says, "Yes, this is good to me." An old high school friend had a little sister who loved chopping wood, lumber, not boners. I went over to his house to help set up for a party and his sister was out splitting logs, again. The lumber, not boners. I don't know if it was the fact she was a 5'4", 90 blonde splitting wood, the lumber, not boners, in one strike or just her getting sweaty, but I've never been so hard, now it's a boner. Not lumber. Before. Was at work. And I had this co-worker who was pretty hot, but I had a boyfriend at the time, so I never pursued him. I was going to take out the trash, and with this freaking smirk on his face he told me, double quote, "Good girl. Sploosh." Right in the submissive fetish. Halloween party. Co-worker went a slave lair. At one point her boyfriend couldn't hear what she was saying, so he gently tugged on her chain to reel her in closer. Needless to say, it moved a little. Edit. Grammar. Gave me an absolute verbal smackdown. This was a bloke I knew in college, 16-18. And it was a long-standing pillar of our interaction to bicker and take the PSS. I'd been ribbing him about one thing or another, making the others around us laugh, when he causally laid out a quip that utterly blew any of my insults out of the water. It was just the way he did it, this lazy flick of sarcasm and wit, that had me both laughing in appreciation and inwardly screaming, "Take me now." I was at a neighborhood concert one time, and this girl was making her way up to the front while the masses of people were pushing and kicking each other. This very cute girl stopped to talk to me to see what's up, and at that moment, everyone decided to sandwich together. So my body was pressed against her tightly. She was directly in front of me, facing me, and she was pretty humorous too, because while we were literally face to face she said, "Nice weather we're having." Never saw her again, but I still think about her. When girls hear a compliment and are giddy yet confident at the same time. Usually a quick shrug, a giggle and a smile. I was hanging out with a female friend I had known for years. Never much sexual tension between us. She had just graduated and was spending her second to last night in her apartment before moving out across the country. Her best friend was hanging out with us, and we were all drinking and Skyping with her best friend's BF. I don't know what happened, but my friend and I got into an argument and started wrestling. Next thing I know, she's straddling me and we're both breathing heavily, and I'm obviously getting turned on. BFF and her boyfriend start joking about the situation, but it has suddenly gotten pretty warm in the room. BFF took her cue and left. And that's the night that I learned my good friend squirts like a blasto eyes. 10/10. Would recommend. One time I was drinking with one of my best friends, and prior to this there had never ever been anything sexual between us. I wasn't even attracted to him. He was pretty awkward, slightly chubby, and on top of it, a good handful of inches shorter than me. He ends up giving me a back rub. I end up making moans of pleasure, because it was a really good back rub. One thing led to another. In the morning I was like, WTF just happened? Because like I said, never had any sexual feelings towards him. This began a very wild sexual platonic relationship with my best friend that lasted about a year. Hands down the best and kinkiest sex I've had to date. Always except the back rub. Folks, oh god. Wait until I tell him that he gave me my highest rated comment on top of that. About 12 years ago I lived in Utah. A good friend was a rather plain looking, very religious, very repressed Mormon housewife. She came to a Halloween carnival at my kid's school dressed as a witch. It wasn't intended to be a SI witch costume, but it was low cut. That in conjunction with the dramatic witch makeup made her hot as hell. It was very jarring to see someone I had never given a second thought dressed that way. I wanted her so bad. I played it cool and tried to not let it show, but never saw her the same again. I was walking to lunch from my office and this incredibly beautiful woman, classy as hell, a really nice, tastefully short and airy dress, was jaywalking across the street. A car turned right from the intersection and has to stop while she crossed, and the guy decided to honk at her. She stopped dead in front of this guy's car and fricking spit on the hood. Seeing a beautiful, classy woman get so aggressive and disgusting really did it for me. So like, this is super weird, but it's happened with my guy best friend, classmates, even my manager at work. You know when guys have the quiff and it's like slightly gelled so it stays somewhat in place? Okay, so when a guy is working super hard or is really passionate or into whatever he is doing and like a few pieces of hair from the quiff likely falls into their face. That is the hottest thing ever, and if I witness that moment I swear I instantly fall in love. Kinda the reverse for me. In a couple of my classes I would braid the hair of whichever girl was sitting in front of me. I made sure to ask that they were cool with it first. Turns out, after the first couple times of me doing this, that there was a little group that always talked about getting their hair braided, and they would have little arguments to find out who got to sit in front of me. Kinda cool, I guess. I mean, I just like braiding hair. I was on spring break a few years ago staying in this hostel with groups of travelers from all over the world. And one night as a group of us were sitting on the patio drinking and chatting about stuff, this hot dude from, I think, Australia, maybe, laughed at something his friend said, and I realized he had the deepest, chocolatist voice I had ever heard. Bam. Right to the clit. Was at a pool party and a guy with some great abs held onto the edge of the pool to lift himself out. The water ran down his chiseled arms when he came out of the pool. And that's how I found out I'm bisexual. In 7th grade, I had a crush on a girl that was very hostile towards everyone. And just all around difficult to get along with. She would frequently hit, slap, punch, scream at, and otherwise harm me and other people. Turns out that since that point, I like being dominated by women. I like when they're in control and use me for their pleasure and their own benefit. Or tease me. Or delay my gratification. I told her this. We were and still are really close. So a conversation like this isn't unusual. And she said, "Oh. Really? Well, I have the opposite problem." And she winked. I was hanging out with a group of friends at the county fair one day a couple summers back, and I had accidentally got an awkward boner. Unfortunately, it was quite obvious. One of the girls I was hanging out with confronted me of my problem, and I tried denying this allegations. She then grabbed my crotch to prove me wrong. I'm not sure if she was trying to turn me on by this, but it totally worked. The awkward erection did not go away. My husband's glasses. We have both worn contacts for most of our lives. And when we've bought glasses, it's always been the cheapest pair. Since we don't wear them often enough to care, plus, you know, poor, we finally bought ourselves new glasses. And I swear my husband has never been S-tier. He cut his naturally curly hair short. And with the glasses, he looks like Clark Kent. I'm totally digging the look. The first time my GF came over to my apartment, she picked up one of my bear knits I had sitting next to my desk. She correctly identified it and the era it came from. Then she asked to see the rest of my collection. May seem weird, but that was insanely hot to me. Redditors dating a twin. What's it like? Do you find yourself attracted to the twin in the same way? And if so, how does that affect the relationship? I dated a twin when I was in high school. She was pretty cute, but I was not at all attracted to her twin. I was friendly with her twin and we'd hang out at school sometimes and chat. But at the end of the day, the fact that he had a penis was kind of a deal breaker. I knew someone a while back who asked triplets out on dates. He asked out one and got rejected. So he asked the next one. She also declined him. So he went to go ask the third. However, he got them mixed up and asked the second one again, who said no again. Finally got around to the third and asked her on a date, where she also rejected him. That's the story of how a guy I knew got rejected by 3 sisters 4 times. I married one, and the other lives on the other side of the country. So the only times we really get to see her sister is on major holidays. It has messed with me maybe only twice in the 14 years of marriage. But yeah, she is hot and my wife knows. My soon-to-be wife is an identical twin. Her sister lived with us for a bit a couple of years back, which was interesting. They share each other's clothes, which has led to a couple of incidents, but they're understanding, haha. Their personalities are pretty different. And I'm pretty sure I've chosen the right one. Been together nearly 7 years. When I was 9, I was best friends with twins Xavier and Fabian. One time we were playing hide and seek and me and Fabian hid and ended up kissing. He automatically became my boyfriend because of childhood logic. Fabian let Xavier pretend to be him to kiss me. They thought I couldn't tell the difference between them. This went on for a really long time, and now that I think back on it, it must have been so weird for everyone around us because we were all so obviously in a weird three-way relationship that everyone refused to acknowledge. They look the same. They have different personalities. They are both unique. I would rail them both. My grandpa originally asked a girl out who was occupied, but her twin accepted. He married her and had 9 kids, lol. Him. Would you like to go out to a movie? Huh? Sure. Just let me finish washing the dishes. Hey. Where'd you go? I dated a twin in high school. They were almost totally identical. But to me, I always could tell them apart. Even on the phone when everyone else couldn't, I could somehow tell who was who. To me, they were totally different people. She eventually passed away from an eating disorder about 10 years ago, and I can't stand to see her twin since. I'm afraid too many bad memories would surface, as she was always the one that got away. In college, I dated an identical twin. They were inseparable and even lived in the same dorm room. They were both very attractive but seemed to have limited success when it came to men. Hence SCRPing the bottom of the barrel with me. A month or so and I found out why. Neither of them were very easy to read in an outgoing sort of way. And they were impossible to tell apart. When I would bump into one of them around campus, I wouldn't know if it was the one I was dating or not. They wouldn't really give any indication, so I found myself frozen in how I should be acting to them. They probably thought guys weren't interested in them at times, but it just became too confusing to choose the appropriate social response in situations where just one was there. Yes, I was attracted to both of them to answer the question, but they should move to different cities and they will likely have better success at carving their own path. I'm a twin. And it doesn't affect the relationship. But my girlfriend nearly didn't get with me because of it, cause she's scared that she'd get in the wrong bed if she was drunk. I told her that I have a much bigger DCK, so if that happens you'll know straight away. Not attracted to the twin. Partly because I find his personality a little obnoxious, but also my boyfriend has bigger arms and shoulders. Or freckles. And has dimples when he smiles, all of which I find more attractive. It doesn't affect the relationship. Except when we were first dating, I found it harder to tell them apart. I went to see my boyfriend at his house one night and knocked on the door. I thought it was his brother that opened the door. I said hey and went to walk inside, so when he pulled me on for a kiss I was like WTF. It was super early on, so he thought maybe he had been too handsy or something, and I just couldn't bring myself to say sorry, thought you were your brother. My wife is a twin. They are identical. But I refer to them as Arnold and Danny from the movie Twins. My wife is the Arnold. She did swimming in high school and to this day still has a more muscular physique. Her sister is much skinnier but has so many health problems. Add to that, they have much different personalities. So I married the better twin and just don't have that much attraction to her sister. I mean, they are still identical. To say I didn't find her at all attractive would be a lie. That said, the first time I accidentally said that my wife was the better twin, my wife was ecstatic. I think that in her opinion that is the sweetest thing I have ever told her. My sister's husband has an identical twin. They were all best friends in college. She never had an issue with that. In fact, when you end up knowing them for so long you can definitely tell them apart. Even I can tell them apart. Both brothers are married with kids. And they are all just a really close family. I got caught fricking my ex-girlfriend's twin. She hasn't spoken to me or her brother since. My wife is a fraternal twin. Her sister is decently hot. They both tend to roll their eyes at me a lot when I suggest threesomes. I'm like super close to wearing them down though. I'm pretty sure. Only twin story I have is about identical twin brothers who hated each other and dated the same girl at various points. The one she was currently dating freaked out because he found out we were hanging out with his brother. I had no idea about their relationship. Brother she was currently dating kicked in the app door with a knife to kill the twin. We locked ourselves in the bedroom and called the police. It was freaking crazy. Years later, I bumped into her little brother. Apparently she married the one who pulled the knife. I've been dating an identical twin for a while. I think my BF is super hot. So I guess his brother objectively is too. But their personalities are different. So it's not something I ever think about. Because I'm only in love with the one. It is a little weird though. Their voices are the same, so sometimes when they're together I hear his bro talking and expect it to be him. I dated a twin briefly in college. Nothing ever came of it. Then her sister started flirting with me. I figured. Double quote. Nah, that would be creepy to ask her out. So never did anything about it. Years later, I'm talking to someone who used to be their roommate. He tells me they used to share boyfriends. Cartman. Damn it. Cartman. Hello. Not dating a twin. But I'm a triplet. So I watch this all happen to my sisters. We look ridiculously similar even now as adults, though my sister now has dyed her hair blonde, so I'm sure that will stop some confusion. Sister number 1 is still dating her high school boyfriend. He is dumb as a rock and still can't tell he's attempting to kiss me. Sister number 2 and not his GF. He regularly calls us by his GF's name. And can't seem to figure out that I wear glasses and neither of my sisters do. However, they've been together 4 years and still seem to like each other. So I guess it's working for them. Sister number 2 now dates around. I have been asked out as her too many times to count. Sometimes I'll let them know they've got the wrong girl. And sometimes I just tell them I'll get back to them. I'm a twin who is married. I've asked my wife this. A little background. Me and my brother are mirror image twins, which means we are completely different people but just look the same. She hates my brother. Can't stand him. He's a womanizing, manipulative control freak. The exact kind of person she hates the most. She also says she's not physically attracted to him because he is a long-time heavy drug user and he is starting to show it physically. I dated a girl in college with an identical twin sister. They would visit each other a lot and tow the BFs along, so I got to notice their differences clearly after a while. That said, their attitudes and personalities were pretty alike. So I could just as easily have dated the twin. My GF asked me if I was attracted to her sister too, and I was truthful and said yes. She was just fine with it, seemed happy even. Her twin was and is a huge part of her life. My older brothers are twins. One of them was married and the other was not. However, they are very close and they went to school together, so my brother's wife knew him very well. My brother's wife had to have a procedure done under anesthesia. And for some reason her husband couldn't pick her up. So his twin picked her up from the doctor's office. Well, in her silly state she was convinced that the twin that picked her up was her husband. And was very upset when he would not kiss her, etc. He got her back to her apartment where she was inconsolable until her husband came home. He tried to console her but she was convinced that he was a twin. So she had them switched and was freaking out. Eventually they got her to go to sleep and when she woke up it was all sorted out. I have a twin brother. My ex-GF from years ago slept with him to get revenge on me. Honestly, I was more happy for my twin to finally get laid than I was pissed at her. I'm just glad he realized extremely quickly she's batch T nuts. If you're with a Megan with an H, they crazy. Wise words of Drake and Josh. Had a SZL relationship with a girl who had a twin. They're both beautiful. The thought of a three-way never leaves your mind, but it's such a tasteless thing to ask. I copyright airing feel like. I've had some exposure to twins as a former romantic interest was an identical twin. Also, my bill is an identical twin. While they're extremely similar, they are also so radically different from each other that I can understand how a person can find one attractive while the other not. Getting to know them, you'll learn how much of an individual they are, from looks to sense of humor, temperament, intelligence, interests, and so on. Currently engaged to a twin. They aren't identical, but look quite similar. The other twin was actually into me shortly before I started dating his brother. I used to think they were both pretty handsome guys, but as I started dating one of them and getting to know the other one better, mine became infinitely more attractive. He's smart, considerate, and thinks before he speaks. His brother has a big heart, but has zero common sense and doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. Not cute. Guys, what is the most awkward thing a girl has ever said to you? Once, after a lonely and drunk night at the bar in which I went home alone, I made an OkCupid account. I made my profile picture one of my cuddling with a baby elephant. Then passed the frick out. I awoke to a raging hangover and a message in my inbox from a very large woman who had written out a list of things she wanted to do to me, including, but not limited to, double quote, sticking that elephant's nose up my ass like a muppet and blowing air out my mouth like a foghorn. I deleted the account. I don't need smart, handsome or funny man. I just need you. That's okay. I like the date down too. She told me that she didn't like cats, and that I had to choose between her spending the night or keeping my cat. As attractive as she was, the cat stayed. She left. You're pretty alright for a black guy. It never gets old. I had a girl in high school tell me that no one would date me because I am too much like a puppy. And no one wants to frick a puppy. Which would be hurtful and not that weird, except that she then followed it up with, but I frick pieces. Have you thought about getting a nose job? Asterisk. Have you thought about walking home? I was trying to think of what actor nose job could be, but I remembered there's plastic surgery. The internet has ruined me. I dated a woman for about a month. One day we are sitting on my couch making out. She says, double quote, I am not attracted to you. I'm sorry. I ended up losing 125 pounds after that, but it still hurt like hell. I was sitting alone at a bar around 10 PM on a Wednesday night. About one drink in, a drunk soccer mom sat down next to me and blurted out, double quote, I'm old enough to be your mom. Are you single? She must have been mid-40s. I was 24. So would you stir but thinking about me? I was 16 and this was the first time I'd met her. Didn't want to be rude, so I said, don't know. But I wouldn't. Editorial. Well, my inbox blew up and I'm not sure how to react to such negative reaction of one of my other replies in this comment chain. But Merry Christmas everyone. I still don't understand it. She was drunk. I was drunk. We just met. We flirted. We were on a friend's front porch, waiting for that friend to come back with food. We kept flirting, but neither one of us made a move. We were also getting hungrier and wondering what kind of food our friend would bring back. We hoped for pizza and salad from this trendy pizza place nearby. Somehow, the two desires, hunger and flirting, got crisscrossed in her head. She turned towards me, leaned close, gazed into my eyes, and in a seductive voice said, double quote, if I was salad, how hard would you pay me? Stop staring at me. Every girl I try to hook up with. I got a little drunk at the bar while talking with a woman I had just met. One thing led to another and we were back at my place bumping uglies. Everything was going fine until she said, "I don't believe in soulmates, but I do believe there is one DCK made for one PSSY and yours is made for mine." Followed by, "Please be real. Is this happening? Please be happening. I hope this is real." Needless to say, that freaked me out. Edit. I failed to mention while walking to my apartment she said, "You don't know I'm not a murderer," and proceeded to fake push me in front of a Jeep. My DCK brain was working much harder than my logic brain after that. While on a Tinder date, the girl asked me what her name was. My mind completely blanked. I managed to play it off as a joke for a few minutes and then check Tinder and remind myself of her name. I've never felt so uncomfortable in my life. Edit. Typo. Nothing. When I asked my wife to marry me, she froze for a few minutes. Eventually cried and said yes, but that silence lasted years in my head. I was in college at a party. I started a conversation with this girl and after 5 minutes she said, "You're a guy I would marry. Not date in college." Thanks I guess. Just yesterday, a girl leaned in to kiss me and as she leaned in for it, she said, "So how is Nan?" I just started laughing right in her face. I couldn't help it. Thankfully she laughed at it too. A couple of hours later, I leaned in to kiss her and in the huskiest voice I could manage said, "Nan is really great." Can I touch it? No shitty, that's why it's out. I would prefer you did, yes. My friend, which I had a huge crush which he didn't know about, randomly said, "You're a nice guy, but you're not tall enough." My confidence dropped. No idea why rejecting someone because of their height is considered okay while rejecting someone because their fat is shallow. Especially because you can't change your height, but you can change your weight. I was 19, she was 35. After sex she asks me if I would do it again but not use a condom. She said I didn't have to be in their life if I didn't want to. She just wanted a baby. Your fly's down. You need help fixing that? On the bus. Well, she didn't say anything. Exactly. The most awkward moment I ever experienced with a girl, though, was at church. I was around 12, maybe 13. The preacher's daughter was in my Sunday school class and was insanely hot. She also went to my school, and to say I had a crush on this girl is an understatement. I was borderline obsessed. And yet, I'd never spoken a word to her. Now, for whatever reason, was wearing a relatively short skirt that day with pantyhose. I staring off into space, and at one point I was looking down at the ground between her feet. I thought to myself, she probably would think I was trying to look up her dress if she noticed the placement of my head. Just in that moment I moved my gaze up to see her staring at me, directly at me. Disgusted, she scowled and then pushed her knees together so that her vulva would no longer be visible. Before you ask, yes, I am lying. I was looking up her dress. And yes, I saw exactly what I was looking for. I apologize for betraying your trust. And I apologized to her for betraying hers. I'm at the movies with my girlfriend. Standing out in the lobby. Another girl that I knew from years ago in school spots me from the distance and approaches us as she exclaims, double quote, "Oh my god. My name. Is that you?" I respond, double quote, "Yep. Hi, her name. Double quote. Is that your girlfriend?" Double quote. "Yep." Double quote. You're still awkward. She then runs off to her movie and my girlfriend starts cracking up. Apparently she agreed. I was in the pool with my co-workers, lifeguard, and we were having chicken fights. One girl says to another girl, double quote, "Hey, get on Mr. Buzz's shoulders. He's tall." She responds, double quote, "Him." Ha 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 ha. And they played without me. IDKY she laughed. But I was very hurt. I was with a girl once and we were about to get it on in her room when she starts giving me a hand job. It was pretty bad. She had the whole death grip going on, so I told her to stop cause it hurt. To which she replied, "But that's how my brother likes it." Needless to say, I grabbed my clothes and ran out the door. Hooked up with a girl and saw her out again at a bar a week later. We start flirting and go to my car to fool around. Not a minute into it she starts saying, "Adam, I love you. I love you, Adam." This was literally our second time together. And my name's not Adam. I was at Walmart with 3 of my soon-to-be roommates for college. We saw a cheap table, ones that are plastic that fold down. And because we are poor college kids, I mentioned that we should get it for our house. Out of nowhere, some girl turns the corner and yelled, "I can be Wyle's table." Still not 100% sure what it meant, but it sure sounded like she wanted an orgy. I wear a spinal brace. This happened on Halloween. Double quote. I like that you're wearing that. Double quote. What? Double quote. I like that you're wearing that. Double quote. Do you know what it is? Double quote. No. But I like that you're wearing it. Double quote. Okay. Thanks. Her boyfriend came over to my table after a while and apologized, saying she was drunk and thought it was somehow related to Nintendo. Lol, she thought you were R.O.B. the robot. 7. Having a sonogram of the area between my balls and my thigh. They sent letter F 60 years old lady in there to do the sonogram. It was clear that Doe had retired from somewhere and on back to school so that she could be letter F a cute a sonogram tech and look at buys all day. She was so mad letter FT she was going to have to sonogram Doe 25 years old dude's balls. As Doe as she walked in the room she letter FD a scowl on her face. And when Doe opened my chart to see what was earning on, she was immediately upset. Day was trying to rub that petroleum conduction jelly between my balls and thigh without actually touching or moving anything. Day-o. I politely moved my CCK out letter F away like any gentleman would do letter F yen. And she got all flustered and doe-hearted. Don't touch it. As if I want air masturbating or somehow getting pleasure out of the experience. I've never been so mad and embarrassed at the same time. For the first time in all my years on Reddit, I finally have the best possible response for an Ask Reddit thread. During college I was invited to my friend's room to drink with her and her new roommate. After a few shots we started playing this game. FU. With some cards. The roommate kept hitting me with a frick subliminary. So it was obvious what was about to transpire. My friend left her room and we immediately get down to business. After around 5 thrusts she goes, "Stop, stop, stop." I was worried and replied, "What? I will remember this till the day I die." She replies, "You're a Republican, right? Because I can't have sex with any liberals." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I freaking love Ronald Reagan." A bit late but anyway. I slept with a girl and after I pulled out, I was fairly pissed so didn't wrap up, and explained to her I didn't want to risk getting he pregnant. He said, and I quote, double quote, "Oh don't worry. I was ARPed a few weeks ago so I can't get pregnant anyway." I had no idea what to say. During sex with a one-night stand. You look like a serial killer when you make that face. Followed by, "Oh come on. Don't let that turn you off." In an elevator with my friend. We're both college dudes, and on our way to the 4th floor. The elevator opens on the 2nd floor and 3 girls get in. One of them says, "Oh boy. Alone with 3 hot girls with nowhere to go? Bet this is a dream come true for you guys." Classic thirsty freshman girls. I was at a bar. Seated. When this semi-cute hipster girl walks up and takes a seat on my lap. Puts her arms around my neck. And asks, double quote, "Are you Jewish?" Double quote, "No." Double quote, "Oh. Because I like your nose. I have kind of a big honker." But this wasn't the only time it's drawn attention. A drunken older woman once told me I had such a cute nose that she wanted to suck on it. I was 13 and it was the time of year for a physical. Always embarrassing. But you grit your teeth and bear with it. The doctor was a normal looking doctor, an older man. No big deal. Pants are about to drop and he asks. Double quote. Do you mind if our intern assists? My position was too compromised for me offer any response beyond a nod of agreement. So I agree. In walks a gorgeous 24-year blonde girl who then proceeds to check me for hernias while I desperately try, in vain, to hold back an erection. Then she spoke. Double quote. Everything seems normal. I was dating a girl for a few weeks. At first she asked if I was comfortable with her in the room while I was peeing. Of course I didn't care. Then she wanted to actually watch me pee and stare at me to see how I reacted. NBD. A few weeks after that she said she wanted to be in the bathroom while I tea. We were only dating for a little over a month at this point. I once dated a girl with kids for about a year. She was crazy as hell but I overlooked a lot because the sex was freaking amazing. When I went to break everything off with her the first thing out of her mouth was. Double quote. If I got rid of the kids do you think we could work things out? Edit. Spelling. Hey handsome. Now that I was fired I can sexually harass you. A 34-year-old woman, I was 20 at the time, who consistently hit on me and made sexual advances to me until I reported her. She was fired for other reasons. Apparently, I was and still am happily engaged so there was zero chance of that happening. He came back in the office to visit and said that I disappeared into the locked security area of the building. First date with an extremely attractive tiny blonde girl. Date goes very well. We end up parked in her car at the beachfront having a fairly deep and complex conversation. She proceeds to tell me, out of nowhere, that she likes to be punched in the face. P said on and hung from the ceiling with chains. I have to say I strongly considered it before I noped the frick out. She really was violently pretty. She was trying to be nice and told me I'd make a nice backup if her first few choices don't work out. She couldn't wrap her dumb little head around why that wasn't a compliment. My brother's ex-wife propositioned me to get tipsy and frick. This was while their divorce was pending. I declined. Just as I penetrated this girl during sex. Double quote. Oh my god. I can feel it. I can feel your energy. It's filling the room. My thoughts. Double quote. WTF am I getting myself into? I gotta get out of here. It was one of the most interesting sexual experiences of my life. Not bad. Just really interesting. I had this girlfriend that confessed her feelings for me. And then I asked her why. She replied. Double quote. Maybe. I just have a crappy taste. I heard you have a great DCK but don't know how to use it. From a friend of the girl I just lost my virginity to. Yeah, I'm not even sure I was a 2-pump chump. Joke's on her, I'm up to 4 pumps now. My ex-girlfriend. During sex. She would always push me away and tell me stop. Then she would continue to say what the frick, don't stop, you are supposed to grab me. Choke me and keep going. Double quote. I want you to pay me. She says. I respond with. Double quote. But what if at some point you don't want me to pay you and I actually pay you? I am not taking that chance. I ended up getting drunk and choking her and really not letting her push me off as I was close to getting off. Then she got all upset cause she really wanted me to stop. I was like, what the frick? You make sex some confusing game of chess. Frick off, and I left. 2 stories. 1. Met her that night at a bar and right after we start kissing for the first time she pulls out and asks. Double quote. So. Are we dating now? 2. Friend told me about this one. He had been dating this girl for some time and they were about to hook up for the first time. During foreplay, she looks at him dead in the eyes and brags. Double quote. I love how no matter how many guys I frick, my PSSY still stays tight. I had a girl break up with me and tell me, double quote, "I can't take you serious anymore." After I thought it was weird, she really thought her cats talked to her. Yes. Cats have feelings. Cats have emotions. No. They do not talk. In the 12th grade I managed to get one of the hotter girls in my grade to come over when my parents were out of town. Naturally I was hoping to get it in. Anyways, we had been hanging out for about an hour when she said she was hungry, so I showed her the contents of my fridge. She got really excited that I had string cheese and then proceeded to sit on the kitchen floor and eat cheese. On the third cheese string I made a joke about something stupid and she laughed and let out the most earth-shaking fart I've ever heard in my life. It rippled with tremendous force on the kitchen floor tiles. I pretended not to hear it. That was awkward. We're married now. Experience of waking up after a one-night stand. Woke up alone and naked in my bed. Figured dude left. No big deal. Suddenly had terrible, horrible, awful, intense stomach cramps. Got up to go to the bathroom. Had to run with my hand cupped under my ass to avoid getting shitty everywhere. Pro tip. Don't do this. Shitty gets everywhere anyways. No use getting it all over your hands too. Close bracket. Anyways, liquid tea exploded out of my ass for a good 15 minutes. Was sitting on the toilet, grateful dude had left and wasn't there to witness my horrible dreaded ass-piecing episode. Got it all out. Took a shower. Went back to my room to find a huge brown puddle in my bed. We fell asleep spooning. Dude was the big spoon. Needless to say, we never spoke again. TL. DR. Probably shat on a dude in my sleep. He punched me in his sleep, which resulted in me having a pretty bad black eye for a couple days. We're friends though, so he's never heard the end of it. I always give for your information and apology ahead of time due to how violent I am in my sleep for any potential cuddle buddy. I try to not fall asleep as Big Spoon. We spent the night together at a party. We woke up reminiscing of the night before. He walked to the gas station to get us drinks and snacks. I had bubble guts, so I farted one time. It smelled like death. He came back maybe 10 minutes later and it still reeked, and he started yelling about dog tea. Woke everyone in the house up. He still doesn't know it was me. She wanted me to stay for the night. I didn't want to, but I did. I woke up in the middle of the night and tried to sneak out just to find out the door was locked. She woke up and asked me where I was going. Double quote. Water was the only thing that came to mind. She walked with me to the kitchen, walked with me back to the room and locked the door again. I served in the US Navy, and on one of our visits to Singapore I met a girl at a club called Fire. I think that was the name. Woke up at her apartment in the morning. About 2 hours from the time my ship was set to depart after having spent all my cash the night before. No idea where I was and no idea how I would get back. As I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, one of the other guys from my ship called the girl. It turns out that they were friends and he saw me leave the club with her the night before. He had a taxi meet me at her place and got me back to the ship in time. I woke up to her wheelchair-bound husband pointing a gun to my face. Damn cougars. I woke up and went outside to call an Uber home after hooking up with this girl and going back to her house one night. Turns out her dad is an Uber driver. And guess who was his first customer of the day? Hands down the most awkward car ride I have ever experienced. The previous night was Valentine's Day. I had just been dumped by a long-term boyfriend. I was drunk in Walgreens looking at the flowers and chocolates thinking about my ex. I then decided it would be a good idea to buy him a balloon and some flowers and leave it outside his house. Because these are the kind of brilliant ideas I get while drinking. Got outside. Let go of the balloon and it flew away. Started crying. Some dude in his car asked me what was wrong. Woke up next morning. He started telling me about how he was trying to be a rapper. Made me listen to some really bad stuff he had wrote. I had to get out. Get up to leave. Tells me I have to wait until his grandma leaves the house to play bridge with her buddies. Because he lives with her since he can't afford to live on his own. I finally get to leave after a couple hours of extreme uncomfortable and awkward feelings of regret. As I walk out, I see his grandma had put the flowers I bought in a vase on the table. Waking up and being asked to leave. And then going outside to find my car was towed. Then having to go back inside and wait. Woke up next to my one night stand. She had peace at the bed. There were a total of 9 people in the house, only the 2 homeowners knew each other. Everyone else were total strangers. Come to find out I'm in a different state, which to be fair is only like 2 hours away from where I live. I had to sit around in PSS soaked clothes with a bunch of strangers while my friend came and picked me up. He made me put on a trash bag in his car lol. Her 1-year-old son crawled in bed and woke me up. He thought I was his daddy. For some odd reason I didn't mind it. Came home with a girl from the bar. We were both trashed. Had sex. Her dog watched. She vomited on me while performing oral sex. Cleaned up as best as I could before passing out. Woke up in the morning to her mom attempting to come in. Asking who was in her room. She said, "No one. Go away." Before telling me that I couldn't leave until her parents left for work. No way in hell I was staying for 2 hours with puke DCK. I climbed out her window on the 2nd floor and jumped off of the roof. Stuck the landing and jogged away down the street. Into a cul-de-sac. Turned around to get out and her mom is on the front lawn in a bathrobe staring me down holding her morning coffee. Walked to a gas station where a friend picked me up. Edit. Oh. And I got chlamydia. TLDR. Took a puke-covered walk of shame past her mother. Woke up to a bunch of Snapchats of my penis from the girl I slept with. She put a couple of them on her story. I guess she did this when I was asleep. Edit. We were PSS drunk the night before. Like the chick was still next to me when I was checking the Snapchats. I woke her up and had her delete them. Wasn't anything malicious. Sex was good though. This girl's parents came home a couple days early and in the morning I was sleeping with her in her room with a couple alcohol bottles surrounded the bed with an ashtray filled with weed and a couple of roaches in there too. Well anyways. Parents came home and went upstairs. Was completely naked with no covers on and they just see my schlong just out in the open. I thought her dad was going to beat my ass. Probably the most awkward thing to ever happen to me. Not me, but happened to a friend. Drunk girl comes barging into his dorm room. Clearly not sure where she is. Yelling for some guy who doesn't live there and proceeds to fall asleep in my bro's bed. He proceeds to pick up his Game Boy and plays games all night until she wakes up the next morning very confused about what had happened. Oh, I've got this one. I posted it a while back, but here's the gist. Got insanely drunk at a hipster bar and met this cute little pixie chick. We went back to place. Double back beasted it. And passed out on her bed. Or what I thought was her bed. When I awoke the next morning, it became abundantly clear that she had absolutely no furniture in her room. Every surface, this includes bed and makeshift desk, was comprised solely of dirty clothes. Literal mountains of them. It didn't smell too bad, considering, but still wasn't pleasant. I sneaked out while she was burrowing deeper into the bed pile. I should also mention that I wear contacts, and didn't have my glasses with me. Turns out I drunkenly removed my contacts and flung them God knows where. So I then proceeded to very blindly, still drunkenly stumble to 5 miles back to my house. College. I was house sitting for my dad who was out of town for a week. Had a girl over who I've known for 6 years. And my dad was pretty involved at my old high school, so he knew her too. He came home a day early and found us both naked in my old bed. He thought it was hilarious. The girl and I were both mortified. Basically, A day after going too hard at a certain beach music festival, I woke up in a really sandy and glittery pull-out couch bed in our condo that I was sharing with my older brother, an older family friend, and their friends, with a guy I barely knew who happened to look exactly like Mac DeMarco. I was horrified because it all came in flashbacks. This very loud hallway bathroom of our condo SX encounter of the fourth kind. He drank like half a handle of our liquor, and I remember him peeing, throwing up at the same time after us doing the deed and then falling into the bathtub. He also threw up on the floor and on my bag next to the couch. Of course. He woke up and didn't remember a single thing. I honestly felt so bad for him, and ashamed that I did that in front of my fam, that I took him to Waffle House and hung out with him at the beach. Needless to say, not my proudest moment, more like my worst moment. Edit. Just thanks for all who made this my most upvoted comment. I'm glad I can share this small misery with my fellow Redditors. The girl had bit my lip till it bled. I had bruises and cuts on my body, and she had peed on her own floor. She couldn't remember my name either. We've been together for over a year and a half and I've never been happier. This was a Craigslist hookup when I was 22, just starting to cross-dress. Went over to this guy's house after texting him for a few days. Nice house on the north end of town. He's 30 and we smoked a lot of weed and he fricked me stupid in about 3 different rooms. I did not plan on falling asleep there at all. I wake up at 10 in the morning. I'm still wearing my white thigh highs from the night before and my white crop top. No panties. I'm in his bed and he's not anywhere to be found. I find my phone and my sneaks and my panties. Put my sneakers on and I'm just walking around this dude's house looking for my boy clothes. It's a 2-bedroom, so it's not like it's a mansion. He lives alone, so the house was really clean, which was somehow more frustrating cause it was so much quicker to search every room multiple times for my clothes and wallet. Around 11 o'clock I notice that my phone is about to die. I start texting my roommate. I'm just gonna come clean to my best friend about my whole lifestyle and all of this shit, and as I'm typing out this confession of me being a sissy and needing a ride home from a hookup, my phone dies. I start crying and I'm just like wandering the house, and suddenly I bump into this sliding door I hadn't noticed before. It's a freaking laundry room. My goddamn clothes are folded on the dryer. My wallet and keys are placed neatly next to them. I swear I have never felt such sudden and gratifying relief in all of my life. Her boyfriend walked in. Understandably, P said. I got out of bed and walked across the hall to my room. Family member after a wedding reception with an open bar. Can't remember much as she cannot either. But we both woke up in the nude with multiple used condoms all over the hotel room. She wet my bed during the night. AWW man. Imagine how horrifically embarrassing that would be. She probably had to deal with that problem her whole life. Just to wake up in a stranger's bed with the worst having happened. Poor girl. You guys were drunk as skunks. In which case you're probably lucky it wasn't number 2. First one later I had was in my early 20s when I'd only met people I was in relationships with. I'm very much the stereotypical gaming nerd. Casual sex is not in my personality at all. So I woke up in my apartment. She was asleep next to me. And I had no idea what to do. If I woke up next to a GF, I'd either cuddle her or get up and boil the kettle. So I got up to do that but phased out and stood naked in the doorway looking at my couch in the other room for I don't know how long. Came out of my bedroom and she said, "What on earth are you doing?" I don't really remember what happened. Think she just got dressed, had a drink and left. Wasn't a bad experience I guess, and we're still in touch, but I was really put off by how out of character it was for me. Went to an older lady's house one night. Next morning her kid comes in. And he's at least 16-17. He's like, OMG mom. Another one? Apostrophe. Woke up on the other side of London pretty happy with myself. Until I realized all I had to wear was a tiger onishi. No chestnut t-shirt, just boxers and a tiger onishi. Going through London rush hour in a tiger onishi with the remains of tiger face paint was interesting. A guy woke up in a freshman dorm. We both smelled of vomit. For some reason we pulled up a bush, and the root distributed dirt all over the floor. I tried to sneak out but was greeted in the hallway by a chubby girl with a broom. And I had to clean up the room. And I left doing the walk of shame holding a giant bush. I didn't find the home for it. But it was never the same after that. Oh, and I lost a shoe. My freshman year of college, I had a one-night stand with a girl from Tinder. Once I met her, she told me she was on probation for punching her ex-boyfriend in the face and breaking his nose. My young self didn't care and just wanted to get laid. The next morning after I left her place, she texted me saying she was drunk, which was completely untrue because neither me or her had anything to drink and there was consent. She was furious with my response and threatened to call the police and charge me with slander. I was confused, so just thought she was crazy and brushed it off. The next night I went to a party with my friends and she was there. She was completely belligerent and came up to me asking me to frick her. I said no and she tried to punch me. I backed away and walked out the door. She followed and threw a bottle of Seagram's vodka which hit a cop car. She was arrested that night and went to jail. Moral of the story: think with your money, not your DC kid. Woke up between a young married couple I met at the bar the night before. I spent the morning awkwardly being shown their wedding photos from just 3 weeks prior. When it was time to politely jet, I couldn't find my other side, at which point the husband excitedly shouts, "Souvenir." I was a sophomore in college. Hooked up with a kid I met at a party. He was a freshman. I was really wasted and he really wanted to put it in my butt. I guess I'll let him. I woke up the next morning still drunk and his friend was sleeping on the floor of the dorm with a stuffed banana. I vomited on the bus on the way back to my dorm room. Missed my classes that day. And then shitty blood for 3 days. Worst experience ever. Found out I hit my face on the nightstand while sleeping and got a bloody nose. My entire chest and face was covered in blood when I woke up. Needless to say, it freaked both of us out lol. This was the one and only one night stand I had. I'm not that type really. I'm a second year university student. In my first year I was up in our club. Was very drunk. On the walk home I messaged a girl I'd had a few drunken nights with before seeing if she was up. She said she was and that I could go over. On the walk there I'm approached by a drug dealer who offers me some weed. I buy a gram off him to take round. When I get round to hers we smoke a joint in her conservatory before heading to the bedroom. She going down on me and all of a sudden the alcohol and weed I've just had hits all at once and I threw up directly onto this poor girl's head. As you would expect, she freaks the frick out and kicks me out on the street and it took 3 hours to get home. That would have been it had I not awoken the next morning realizing I didn't have my phone. So I had to walk back to this girl's house hanging out my ass and sheepishly ask for my phone back after throwing up on her the previous night. TLDR. Threw up on a girl's head while she was blowing me. Had to go back to her house the next morning and retrieve me phone which I'd left there. One night I was out grabbing some wings and beer with the boys and about 5 younger men join us later on. We get to talking and some sexual tension arises between me and 2 of them. Everyone else leaves, leaving me and these 2 men. I am over 50. Be leaning more towards men. And both of these young men are 21-ish. We close down the place and go back to my place. A pretty normal night ensued. But the real kicker comes the next morning. I find out that these 2 lads are my son's friends. TLDR. Spit roasted by 2 of my son's friends. We went to her house, did our thing, and went to sleep. Woke up next morning to a really heavy set kid in the doorway. I said hey and he starts laughing hysterically. It was her special needs lil bro. I woke up. She was gone but my friends busted in showing me pictures of the skanky looking chick with, I shit you not, black teeth. Dude. This is the girl you fricked last night. The most aggressive shower ever taken followed. Never saw her again and never looked at her picture again. Don't know her name or where she lives. All I remember are those black teeth. And that's the last time I got PSS drunk without a trusted, experienced wingman. I had a one night stand a couple weeks ago that I thought would be the beginning of a nice love story. She was babysitting a kid that I trained to play soccer. I was really digging this girl. We went out and we were dancing and whatnot. Hitting it off really well. Long story short, when we got to my house I heard her doing coke in my bathroom, and when I woke up the next day she was gone. Never spoke about it again. I was in Vancouver on a port visit and spent most of the night drinking and the rest scouring the city for somebody who maybe had some shrooms for sale. I asked this random girl on the street. Ended up in a conversation with her. We go back to her place and smoke, and she proceeds to make me instant mac and cheese but left out any trace of butter or milk. Being a gentleman, I silently eat said mac and cheese. The night progresses and we hook up. In the morning, massively hungover, I realize what happened the night before and I sheepishly slip out of the house before she wakes up. I then realize I don't have a penny on me and I don't know where I am. Spend the rest of the day trying to find my way back to my ship. A freaking sailor's life for me. What is the darkest, most disgusting secret in your past? NSFW NSFL. One time in college I was drinking with friends who proceeded to shame me after I passed out in their company. Besides the usual stuff, like drawing on my face in permanent marker and pouring beer on me, they filled my ears with ketchup and mustard, and I think one of them peed on me. In any case, after talking to them the next day, I figured out it was mainly the work of two guys who were roommates. I laughed it off and pretended it didn't bother me, even though it took weeks to get all the shit out of my ears. So the day everyone left for our 3-week winter break, I urinated in a thin metal tray and put it in the freezer. After it froze, I emptied it to get a solid sheet of frozen PSS, and I slid it under their dorm room door. Fast forward 3 weeks, and their entire dorm room smelled like PSS. And I heard their carpet was technically alive. To make it even better, maintenance didn't get around to replacing the carpet for about a week after classes started up again. And the guys were charged damages. No one figured out how it was done, since the only people that had access to the dorm rooms were the RAs. I had a little 2 cm sticker photo I got printed out at the seaside. It was a picture of me smiling. I used to get completely naked and stick it on the head of my penis, flax it. I would then move my foreskin up and consume the picture. Once everything was set, I'd run out my room and find the first family member I could. They'd look at me and I'd shout, "Where was he?" Then they would respond in some fashion and I would reply, "Here he is," whilst furiously retracting my foreskin to expose the sticker. Dark times. I was in the stall taking a tea after lunch in 7th grade. My friend comes into the bathroom and starts throwing paper towel into my stall. Next I hear him walk up to the urinal, which is a stall away to my right. I reach into the toilet and throw one of my turds over the stalls and it smacks the ground by his foot with a nasty splat and it exploded all over his shirt and bottom of his jeans. I heard him scream, then run out. I had to run out of my stall and pick the turd up with paper towel while another kid came in and saw me doing that. My hands smelled like tea even after washing them 3 times. And my friend smelled worse. TL. DR. Threw a turd at my friend. My freshman year of high school, I went on a trip to Disney World with the marching band. We were on our way to ride Splash Mountain when I realized that I really needed to take a sh-tea. I was too shy to ask my entire group of friends to take a bathroom break so I could poop. So I just squeezed my cheeks and hoped that I could hold it all in until someone else needed to go to the bathroom. We were about halfway there when I decided that it would be safe to squeeze out a little fart to take some of the pressure off my bowels. Worst decision ever. What either would be a tiny discreet fart turned into a full-sized turd erupting into my undies. Luckily, the turd was pretty firm and dry. So it just kinda sat there, cradled in the crotch of my underwear for a few seconds. Then, with a swift adjustment of my underwear, the log just rolled out of my skirt and plopped to the ground. I looked back about 5 seconds later and the shitty was gone. Some park sanitation ninja must have scooped it up about as soon as it hit the ground. As far as I know, none of my friends noticed, but I always wonder if at least one of them will forever remember me as double quote, that girl who shitty in the middle of Disney World. So, yep, I took a shitty in Disney World in high school because I was too afraid to ask my friends to stop for a bathroom break. This isn't really that dark or anything, but it is pretty hilarious. So my uncles all hunt and they would go to a taxidermist and get some of the things stuffed. I was about 7 or 8. And they brought home these 2 huge stuffed bears. Not stuffed toys or anything. Actual stuffed bears. And they were posed to stand and got set up in the playroom at my grandmother's. I don't really remember what my thought or motivation behind it was. But I have a distinct memory of sitting on the floor cross-legged. And this bear's private area was right in my face. And for whatever the fricking reason, I was like, oh shitty. What is that little nub? I'm going to wrap my lips around it. About 20 seconds later I realize it was a penis and then freak out because I thought I was pregnant. TL. DR sucked a stuffed bear's penis and thought I was pregnant. When I was a kid I went to jump off a diving board and I slipped on one side, pretty much landing on my vagina and a sideward split. There was a ton of blood and I only had a small tiny cut down there. I'm pretty positive my hymen broke because of it, but I never talked to my mom about it after it happened. I killed a man in Laos. A robber. I didn't mean to. Hid his body and everything. I'm going to freaking hell. 4 years ago I found my girlfriend on the floor of her bathroom after having shot herself. We were pretty much inseparable for quite a few years. So people tend to bring up whatever happened to her a lot. Because of that, I actually have a somewhat elaborate lie that I tell people so I don't have to tell them the truth. In 3rd grade, I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I stole my Uncle Max's toupee and I glued it on my face when I was Moses in my Hebrew school play. In 5th grade, I knocked my sister Edie down the stairs and I blamed it on the doggers when my mom sent me to the summer camp for fat kids and then they served lunch. I went nuts and I pigged out and they kicked me out. But the worst thing I ever done is I mixed a pot of fake puke at home and then I went to this movie theater. Hid the puke in my jacket. Climbed up to the balcony and then I made a noise like this. Hooah 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 osa, and then I dumped it over the side. All over the people in the audience. And then, this was horrible. All the people started getting sick and throwing up all over each other. I never felt so bad in my entire life. Went to my friends at age 8 or so. He said, dude, you gotta try this dog milk, it is delicious. He then proceeds to suck his dog off until it comes in his mouth. Lost a good friend that day. When I was in the 6th grade, there was a girl in my class named Gina who was horrible to me. She constantly made fun of me. I was a shy, bookish girl, and once even had a birthday party and invited everyone in my class except for me. In the 6th grade we had a project called Egg Babies. Basically we all got a hard-boiled egg that we had to treat like a baby, make a little nest basket for it and take care of it. We weren't supposed to even leave it out of our sight. The idea being to teach us responsibility. Apparently our class was geeking around too much with the egg babies. So our teacher told us that at the end of the week, if our egg was cracked, we would get an F. One day while the class was out at recess, I was allowed to come back into the classroom to get my inhaler. Gina had left her egg inside the classroom. I looked around, then walked over to her egg and tapped it on the desk, breaking the bottom. Then I put it back in her basket and went back out to recess. Gina ended up failing the project because her egg was broken. She was really pissed off. I never told anyone. And I still don't regret it. Frick you, Gina. When I was a child, I lived in a foster home. I had my own room. with a TV, and every day I came home from school and watched Fox's Fun House. Had me a crush on MR. J. D. Roth. One day another girl came and moved into my room. I wouldn't have minded, except she was mean and controlling and wouldn't let me watch my beloved show. One day she told me that her mom actually lived a few blocks away from our house, and I convinced her to run away. I didn't realize at the time that runaways ended up getting sent to a group home. I just knew that I wanted her gone. It's been almost 20 years since that happened and I still feel terrible. I hope she is okay. Me and my sister drew humped 3 times. Almost got caught the 3rd time, so we stopped. Spanked it in class in the 9th grade. The class was in session. They knew. I'm 21. First week in my new apartment, I take a shower and walk to my clothes hamper in the nude. I let out your typical fart, and somehow end up shitting in the floor while just standing there. That fart betrayed me. When I was younger, it would have been year 5 or 6 of primary school, I had this weird sort of had this gay thing with another boy. I think it was attention seeking at first. We'd kiss to gross the other kids out, just on the cheeks, but occasionally on the lips. This all culminated in something rather strange. He was round my house, and we were kissing a bit, I remember. Yep. I must be B, and I had this sleeping bag. What we did was go into my bathroom and get into the sleeping bag together. At some point we decided that we were going to touch Will's. I remember saying I was going to get completely naked for this act. He was a bit more shy and only lowered his trousers. So we lay in the sleeping bag pressing our boners together. We did this for a minute or so when my mum knocked on the bathroom door saying she needed the toilet. The amount of time it took for me to get my clothes back on, I imagine I was obvious something strange was up. I can only imagine my mum's face now as we both walked out awkwardly carrying a sleeping bag. I feel kinda weird about it as the boy took a turn for the worse recently. He's got some mental problem. He seems disturbed, and to this date I've never done anything with another boy. No one ever mentions my gay period in primary school. Maybe no one remembers. Or I have friends good enough to not give me shit for it. First time I've ever said all this. Throwaway. So I was about 8 and I just figured out that grinding my penis on things felt good. But I was searching for something better. I came up with this brilliant idea. I went outside and found the family dog. Took him to my room. He was a one big Great Dane. He really liked ketchup. So I took a bunch and put it on my penis. Few weeks later we had a daily licking session. My mama walked in on me one time. I've suddenly felt the most surreal adrenaline rush run through me with shame and embarrassment. I thought I would have received the beating of a lifetime. Instead my mom laughed uncontrollably for a few minutes as I was crying out of shame. She didn't do anything to me. But she did say, "When you grow up, you better have enough money to pay my rent." Can I just ask a quick question? What prompted you to finally tell this? Did you wake up this morning and go, double quote, "Today is the day I come clean about the Cat v Gina incident," to the internet? Because I'm quite curious about the impetus for this. I used to think dirty thoughts about a kindergarten teacher. I was in kindergarten and we're both female. Granted, my idea of dirty was hugging and rolling around. I have never told this to anyone. Growing up in a rough neighborhood and having to act tough to survive made me a sort of rebel. I remember walking across a street one time chewing gum when I noticed a peculiar sign that warned against littering. Thinking of myself as a badass, I spit my gum out on the street in an act of defiance against the man. When I reached the other side I heard somebody curse out, instantly knowing that they had stepped on my gum. I turned around and watched them struggle to pick the spent gum off their shoe. Enjoying the moment. Out of nowhere, a horn blew and I saw the speeding bus for only a moment before the pedestrian was obliterated. I left the scene. When I was 12 I went to my grandpa's house, and since he was a hunter at the time he had this huge ass stuffed bear, but it was empty with a hole in its back. I thought it would be funny to climb inside and be a bear. So I got inside, and as soon as I got inside, my grandpa and some of his friends that had come over that day entered the room where the bear and I waited for what felt like an hour as they discussed guns and bears tea. I got bored and, being a 12-year-old who had just discovered the wonders of fapping, had the idea to rub one out inside the fricking bear. Once I had finished the dark deed inside the bear, I accidentally bumped into the wall the bear was near. Grandpa heard it and pulled me out with my pants around my legs and erection in full view of his friends. We never spoke of it ever again. I came inside a bear and my grandpa found me. I had sex at 4 for the first time. Basically we were just playing doctor and we understood that me and her, same age and height, could have intercourse standing. So, yes, you can have an erection at 4. Yes, I did penetrate her. I just inserted my penis in her vagina 2-3 times a day and left it there. We did this for 2 summers and then she had a vaginitis, so she told the doctor about it. In fact, the whole neighborhood knew it by the end of the summer. 25 years after, we are still very embarrassed of this when we cross each other. When I was 7, I counted up all my change in my piggy bank to open a bank account. My mom decided to exchange my coins with her bills, letting me grab it from her purse before I went to the bank. In her wallet was more money than I had ever seen in my life, $30, and I took an extra 20 on the sly. She didn't notice until the next day at work when she discovered it missing. She accused her co-worker, who was in the midst of having a mental breakdown, of stealing it, who rightly flipped out over the accusation. Their boss tried to mediate but ended up firing the co-worker over losing control of their anger. I hear the story that evening in horror and throw the $20 in the garbage. I never told a soul. My life during the 90s is a bit of a blur due to an undiagnosed mental disorder. But on one occasion, my buddy was eating a sandwich that had been cross-contaminated with a foreign object due to my own clumsiness. He was so upset that I chose to remain silent about my involvement in the event. Things got out of hand when he filed a lawsuit against the company that supplied the canned tuna on his sandwich. I finally broke down and confessed that I put the screw in the tuna. Throwaway. This past New Year's I went out with my cousin to go see Laidback Luke at Pasha in New York City. We ended up getting really trashed because we had free drinks for a few hours there. We both took some Molly after a few hours and we both started rolling and were feeling amazing. Next thing I know, my cousin starts grinding on me, and I grabbed her and started dancing with her. She reached up and grabbed the back of my neck while turning her head and kissed me while we were dancing. Not having a care in the world, I tried reaching up under her dress without any hesitations. Not only did she not jump, she moved down onto my fingers. We continued this until the end of the night while also doing another Molly each. After we left, we took a cab to the hotel that we were staying at. We ended up having sex that night. Waking up in the afternoon the next day was really awkward as we no longer had the drugs and alcohol in our system. We talked about what happened, agreed that it ended up being a really fun night, but that it could never happen again and that from then on we would never talk about it. I used to collect grasshoppers and crickets and remove their back legs so they wouldn't jump away. It was only a few days after I started when I realized how cruel it actually was. I still feel bad. And that was at least 18 years ago. When I was 5, I was hanging out with my brother, playing soccer. He fell, and being the huge wimp he was, he went to get a band-aid. I decided to explore a little around our apartment. I heard some noises, and when I looked around the corner I saw 2 people beating the shit of a younger kid, about 16. Then one of them said, "Palabras filaments. Final words." And the teen said, "Dios te bendiga. God bless you." He then made eye contact with me. They pulled out a gun and put a bullet in his head. They didn't see me until I started to cry. I went to therapy for years, and still wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. My parents and I were on our way home from a vacation and we stopped at a hotel. We watched TV for a while and then they said it was time for bed. So I curled up and was about half asleep when their bed started squeaking. I couldn't figure out what they were doing, but didn't want to bother them. So I laid there and stared out the window. About 20 minutes later, the bathroom light clicked on, and my mom asked my dad to grab her a towel. I never thought anything of it then. But a few years later, I finally figured out what happened and was absolutely horrified. Serious, people that have willingly engaged in incest. Why? Has your life changed because of it? Last year's I started to engage sexually with my first cousin. She was 16. I was 17. Well, at first, we just made out. But it slowly progressed to hand jobs from her and fingering from me. Soon, she was giving me BJS and well, we wanted to do more but we couldn't find a way to do it without getting noticed. This year, though, we worked it out and managed to do it. We did it 2 times while we were drunk. I can't say I disliked it or I feel guilty or anything. It is amazing. We are both horny as frick. She's hot and thinks I'm hot as well. I only see her once or twice a year, but I always look forward to it. I don't give a shit. Does this count? My third cousin had an obsession with anal sex and had me regularly frick her in the ass. We didn't even know we were related at first. We were friends at the time who had a talk about sex and decided to frick for fun. But after we found out, though surprised, we regularly made trips to the ring town. Still fantasize about dad ass to this day. I'm counting step siblings. It just sort of happened. Our parents got married and a couple years later we still hadn't developed a family bond of any sort. Still haven't. It started when a friend was over and had a huge crush on me. So they crash in on me when I'm just relaxing in the hot tub. We also had a pool and it was late fall so it was super cold. So a dare happened to switch back and forth between the pool and hot tub. This started a game of truth or dare and things got a bit sore. Stuff like being naked in the bubbles of the hot tub but we couldn't see anything. Then stuff like sitting on my lap and whatnot. Nothing more happened that night but a couple days later we are both in the hot tub and start daring again. Things start to go the way they went before but again nothing. My mom and her dad went to sleep super early so we could really do this whenever. The dare started happening out of the hot tub and in the woods and from there it began to escalate. Double quote. I dare you to jerk off. Or, I dare you to take all your clothes off. It just kept escalating until we just sort of grinded on each other. We were both 13, until we both came. That happened a few more times because neither of us could get a condom and then I stayed at my dad's all summer and we stopped doing that stuff. We never mentioned it to anybody and as far as each of us know the other has forgotten all about it. TL. DR it escalated slowly. I had sex with my cousin when we were both 17. It was consensual and there were never any guilty feelings from either side. We only had sex the one time but I think it was because we both fell into long-term relationships shortly after we slept together. Our relationship never changed after we slept together. This was over 20 years ago and we still talk on a pretty regular basis with no weirdness. Okay, so 2 years ago-ish. My best friend hooked me up with her friend who was in a lot of my classes so I knew her a bit well since I basically knew everyone. We all were planning a double date basically. And that was in like 2 weeks. The 3 of us hung out numerous times and she'd always try to hold my hand or come onto me. I always jerked away because it always felt weird and I had no idea why. I just figured it's because I'm awkward and never really been in a relationship. This kept going and I just decided to end it because I wasn't comfortable. A week later she's taking pictures of my other cousin on my dad's side who I don't know that well because he kind of abandoned my mom and I and is in and out of jail all the time. Turns out, she knew the whole time we were cousins and thought I knew too. I guess my weird instincts were right. Welcome to Indiana. Also sorry for fricked up paragraphs. on mobile and still getting used to it. When I first read this I thought you meant actually getting engaged to someone you're related to. But keeping it serious. I made out with my cousin once when I was like 5. She was like 11 or something. Nothing ever happened with it. Also, I told my younger brother a few months ago and he said she did the same thing to him, so there's also that. I've never actually engaged in incest. But got pretty close obliviously. I was maybe 12. Younger. Like. I was a child. And we'd usually go further south to my grandma's house to stay a couple of weeks while my parents did whatever they did. This was my grandmother on my dad's side of the family. So rednecks. I have a cousin who used to live next to my grandma's house. And she'd come over occasionally to play with us. She was a couple of years older, in high school. She would always try to wrestle with me. And take me into the woods. For a bedroom alone. I was completely oblivious to what she was trying to do. And wouldn't go into the woods with her because I was afraid of bobcats. And snakes. She never got to do anything to me. Because my grandma is awesome. And a pretty keen lady, even to this day. Though. When we wrestled she usually got to pin me in an awkward position that I'd feel uncomfortable in. If I would have known what she was going for, I honestly might have accepted it. Maybe a kiss at most, out of curiosity. But I'd definitely end up regretting it. I never thought I would get to share this. I didn't do it, but I have a story regarding this. A day after our prom ended, many of our classmates, imagine 2/5 of the batch, met the next day at a friend's home. The house was quite big and we partied hard until we reached the bed of the night. We all were playing a game where we would draw out 2 names from the bowl and both of them had to make out inside a spare guest room, and most of these cases ended up full-blown sex. This was the last round we played. Most of us were drunk. We pulled out 2 names. They turn out to be brother and sister. Now being big idiots and pretty much assholes, we started to chant for them to make out and started to push them into the guest room. We were just joking and they just played along with it. So we locked them in and waited 5 to 10 minutes, then opened the door to end the round. We expected them to be angry and just sitting there to open the door. Instead the brother was balls deep, instead her sister. It was the most gross thing you could ever see in your lifetime. Both of them quickly ran out of the house. Later we came to know that it was a first time event and heat of the moment situation. I met a friend last year who told me nobody in their family knows nothing happened between them and it's turned very awkward between them. My wife's family has multi-generational incest. To the point that she only has 3 sets of great-grandparents. There are no signs of problems in her generation. And they all married way outside the family tree. I lost my virginity to my foster sister when we were 5 or 6. My older brother explained the mechanics of it. So we tried. I won't go into pervy details. It was not traumatic to me. Can't speak for her. She was already in foster care though. I doubt I was the trauma in her life. This was the early 70s. No idea where she is today. I let my cousin frick me from the age of about 12 until we were both 17. We were always playmates as babies, and when we started going through puberty I guess he saw how lonely I was and we were both horny. It was super awkward the first time it happened, but after it started it was a constant nightly thing when we were together. I am thankful for the experience because it was hard growing up an only child and he made it a little easier. Nobody will ever read this, but whatever. From the age of 14. My older sister 16 and I had to share a bed. We weren't rich. 2-bedroom house with 4 of us. Just after I joined secondary school my sister started to stab at me when I was asleep. Started off with basic things like her feeling my DCK while I was asleep. Putting her hands down my trousers and just feeling my DCK, etc. Of course she thought I was sleeping. This went on for about 7-8 months until one day we got into a fight and I told her I'll tell my dad what she does. She denied it. At that point it kinda stopped. Then I started to try and initiate it by touching her. Cut the long story short. It became normal for us and we ended up giving each other oral sex until she moved out at 22. We're very touchy-feely with each other. We never had sex. But I always fantasize about us now. I can't freaking stop it. Had a sexual relationship with my cousin, M, for a few years. It started when I was 14 and he was 16. He stayed at my house for a week and we tried to have sex, but I was scared, so we just did oral and I got fingered. He left the top of a condom wrapper out in the open and we almost got caught. Then for the next few years up until we were about 17 and 19 we would SXT. Make out. And if we could visit overnight and not just for a few hours we would have sex. I'd always felt lust towards him, and at 12 and 14 we did almost have an encounter in a pool. We went by ourselves and he said he couldn't swim, so he stayed pretty much on each other the entire time we were in there. My aunt let us share a bed that night and we cuddled. I don't feel bad or gross now, but we don't talk. He wanted a relationship, but we would have had to keep it a secret, and I've always wanted kids, and I know having kids with my first cousin could cause major issues. I had to break it off. I upset him and I feel guilty about it, but now it seems like he moved on just fine. I'm pretty sure my sister and dad had an incestuous relationship. They were obsessed with each other. She was like his house pet. She never had a relationship or a job. She just lived in the condo he bought her and got fat. She died 2 years ago and he still keeps her place the same as it was. Slept with my long lost half sister. At the time I thought we were in love. I confessed everything to the police. Ended up on the sex offenders register and completely ruined my life. That was 10 years ago. I still haven't and expect I won't ever recover. Yes. My brother and I engage in it every day. We've been together for 6 years and have 2 kids. It started because I was horny and just wanted to get laid. Turned into a relationship. My life changed a lot because of it. All the plans I had for after high school got thrown out the window. But it was worth it. My cousin and I. She's a 22-YO girl. I'm a 26-YO guy. Started texting. She's had a crush on me since we were tiny. I didn't think she was attractive until she was around 18. But she clearly has liked me for as long as we've been alive. The texting quickly escalated to sexting and flirting all the way to pictures. When we met face to face the next time at a family thing, she was with her boyfriend but totally ignored him and was all over me. It was a little awkward because we were clearly digging each other, but it seemed like her boyfriend could tell. If he wasn't there, I'm sure we would have figured out a way to smash. But nothing has happened physically between us yet. And I'll admit that the whole taboo factor has definitely made us more into it. I don't really care. It seems really convenient and I can't really ignore how strong the urge is. So yeah, that's been my experience so far. I'm in a long-term relationship with my biological half-sister on my mother's side. I'm a male. We didn't grow up together. We actually didn't meet until we were both almost 30. Never knew each other at all until that point. I had been trying to get in touch with her on and off for a decade or more. In a desire to meet the long-lost sibling and try to connect as family. I finally succeeded via online social networks and a bit of social engineering. We talked. Purely online. On and off for about 6 months with some mostly unacknowledged sexual tension making us both very uncomfortable. When we did finally acknowledge it, it came together very quickly and very powerfully. At the time, we were both in serious relationships. I was in a non-monogamous relationship and she was actually engaged and fully monogamous. My SO knew all the details, was 100% okay with it. Her fiance obviously had no idea. He agreed to meet up. We had a week of incredible sex and an insanely intense emotional connection equaled by no other relationship in my life. Romantic or otherwise. It was a heady week. Not long after that, we both ended our contemporary relationships, surprisingly mostly amicably on her end. Hell. Blood and fire on my end. No. I will not be telling that story. I moved to be with her and we've going good ever since. This is a true story. And I've attempted not to editorialize. I am a writer by trade. So some unintentional embellishment may have snuck in. I'll answer some questions. but probably not in a satisfactory way. This relationship is absolutely illegal where we live, and a very select few people know about it. My girlfriend has a mild crush on her brother. I realized it at some point, and since we are quite into roleplay and BDSM, I've been fricking her for almost a year while she screams her brother's name, and she really likes it. Not just fantasy. I've talked to her about it outside sex and she really likes her brother and would frick him given the chance. Her brother is hot as frick, 2 years younger than we are, and he is the typical gay guy completely blind to his own gay side. He has a girlfriend and everything. Every time he acts manly, my girlfriend gets wet, but most of the time she can handle it by looking at him like a gay guy. I've been trying to push her to show more of her body when he is around and to test the ground, but without luck. She still sees a gay guy and that relaxes her. Alright. Throwaway time. I have talk stories. One is significantly less consequential than the other. A while ago, I was dating someone. As much as she wanted it, I was hesitant about taking that extra step, for reasons that will become apparent in the next story. Later, I'm talking to her mom, who I thought was a family friend. Turns out, she, the mom, is my third cousin, and I was pajama pants away from giving it to my niece. So that's the fun story I tell around drinks. Now for the serious one. When I was younger, I was very close to my cousin. Let's call her Sarah. My oldest cousin is 30 years older than me, and my youngest is 24 years younger. I'm 23 now. So with those massive age differences, it's hard to really bond with anyone. But Sarah and I are really close in age, and thus bonded a lot. We watched TV while intertwined with each other. We always sat next to each other at the table or in the car, or on top of each other, depending on how much space there was. We slept in the same bed, holding hands. And we also had a lot of alone time. And we spent that alone time in each other's arms, under the covers, sucking on each other's faces. I mean, I was kissing her normally, but her kisses were really wet and open-mouthed. Definition of face sucking. Side note. According to her boyfriend, she still kisses like that. I'm not sure when this started, because we were that young and memory doesn't go that far. But I can pinpoint that it was already a regular thing before her brother was born. She was 4. I was 5. This continued for years. I lived away from my extended family, so I only saw Sarah for a week or 2 each year. But when we saw each other, it was on like Donkey Kong. And when I didn't see her, that's all I would think about. I kept a picture of us with me wherever I went out. According to my brother, whom I share a room with, I would talk to her in my sleep. I was really truly in love with her, and she made me feel like she was in love with me too. Anyway, fast forward to when I'm 12, she's 11. We're on the couch in her basement, doing our thing. Still no sex. I've never had sex with her. And we hear our grandfather coming down the stairs. She whispers stop, and I pull away and we continue playing Mario Party on her GameCube. And that's when it stopped. We never slept together after that. We never cuddled. We never kissed. That was the end of it. But that was not the end of my feelings for her, as I grew up through middle and high school. I was still borderline obsessed with her. I got into a few relationships in high school, but whenever I'd get close, whenever she'd snuggle up, I would always remember Sarah, leading all of my relationships to end in disaster. I tried to pick up my life as best as I could, shove those feelings deep down inside, and move on. I got accepted to my dream university, but one night, while I was talking to Sarah, she asked me to move to her city for uni. And like a freaking idiot, I did. I rationalized it. Of course. She started calling me her brother. So I thought, if I could be her brother, if I can be there when she needs me, then I can make her happy. And that's enough for me. So, that's what I did. I became her brother. I was her shoulder to cry on. I was the solver of her problems. I've had to break up with guys for her, because she doesn't like confrontation. This is how things have been going for about 5 years now. I haven't been able to pursue my own relationships or opportunities. Because I'm always at her beck and call. And every time I try to leave, she makes a puppy dog pout and my insides melt. And that's how I've become stuck. I'm stuck because I'm in love with my sister. And she doesn't know. About a year ago, we talked about our past for the first time. I let her steer the conversation because I learned early on that she doesn't remember most of what happened. She remembered that we were close. And she remembered one instance when we were physically intimate. And she remembers her mom getting mad at her because she wanted to marry me. Our parents probably chalked it up to kids being kids. And didn't investigate further. I hope having not asked her or my parents about it, I didn't have the heart to tell her that there was more. Nor about the feelings that I had during that time. Nor that I still have those feelings for her. It's just something that happened. And I'm going to let her keep thinking that for her own safety. Fast forward to the past months. Her apathy has gotten the best of her. Her family life, social life, and professional life are slowly falling apart. But it's okay. Because her brother is always there to save the day. Meanwhile, my own life is in shambles because I'm constantly rushing to her. Plus I'm hiding my shambles from her. I know it's stupid and hypocritical, but I love her. So that's what I do. Monday, yesterday, I enrolled myself back in counseling. I know what my problem is. I just don't know how to fix it. And after a lot of coincidences this week, including finding this thread, and the equally appropriate "What's killing you?" thread, I finally butted up to post about it. Posting here is not gonna solve my problems, but it'll help to finally tell someone. I fricked my sister. I wasn't a virgin. I guess she wasn't either. She was 14 and I was 17. Even though she was only 14, she looked 18. A real popular girl at school. And I'm also attractive. I was sleeping in her bed because she wasn't home. Her bed is way more comfy than mine. So I kinda did that a lot if she wasn't home for the night. But this time she came home in the night. Normally she should have arrived the next day and snuck up with me in bed. We were spooning but I was still asleep. I woke up and felt her ass against my penis. I got hard and she kept wiggling her ass against my penis. Next thing I know I was fricking her doggy style. She had an orgasm. I didn't. Took maybe 5-6 minutes. I stopped and only then kinda realized what the frick I was doing. I ran to my bedroom and covered myself under the blankets with a huge shame feeling. I spent the whole night wondering if I upped her or if she actually wanted it. The next day she acted normal. But I couldn't look her in the eyes. Huge amount of guilt. But she was definitely more sweet to me than average because normally we argued and fought a lot. We didn't have a fight or argument since then. I felt shame for years. Even though I really got the feeling she also wanted it. The guilt was so much. That happened over 10 years ago. We never talked about it. It's a closed deal for me. I had to live with a huge guilt and shame and I was so confused that night and the following days. Every time I heard something about incest on TV or somewhere else I just froze. Now we're normal. If she's in trouble she'll call me and I'd be there. She's happy with the most awesome boyfriend I know. I'm happy with my pretty girlfriend. People who have witnessed there's not going to be a wedding moment following a bachelor/bachelorette party. What went down? My wife's friend called off her wedding a week before the ceremony. She lived several hundred miles away for school, but came back to her hometown 2 weeks before the wedding to make sure everything was lined up and have her bachelorette party. In the course of her visit, she came across an old boyfriend who was also engaged and things sparked up again. They agreed they should each leave their fiancés and give their relationship another shot. Turns out, he didn't keep up his end of the bargain, and she is still single today. Ultimate ex revenge. I see a lot of bachelor and bachelorette parties in my line of work. I actually have a few of these memories. The first that comes to mind was an interesting night where the bachelor party was happening at one bar and the bachelorette party was in the bar down the block. At the groom-to-be's party I get a call for help from the place. It's a tame security call. Just a couple getting it on in a bathroom. The bar wanted them booted. I find out the dude is the groom-to-be and the girl is just some random chick. The chick goes off on her own and now I'm with the groom outside. He's drunk and almost uncontrollable. I'm trying to find him a way home safe. His brothers were all crappy and kept the party going without him. After a while, the bride-to-be and her gals come walking down the street. A couple people around chime in and tell her why I'm there dealing with him. She breaks down and calls the wedding off right there. He ended up going to detox that night. A friend of mine in college had been engaged to her high school sweetheart. Plan was for them to get married after she graduated. She was one of those that dreamed of her wedding since she was a little girl. She had been planning forever. A week before the wedding, he leaves without a trace, except a note saying I can't marry you. She was devastated. We still had a party with a wedding cake, food, etc. because it had all been paid for already. Saddest party ever. She ran into him a few years later at an 80s dance club wearing a mesh shirt and a taxi hat making out with a dude. Saw it coming. One of my best friends growing up had her dad come out after 4 children and nearly 30 years of marriage. Turns out he had been cheating on his wife with men for almost 20 years. She genuinely never suspected a thing. Just one day he woke up and decided it was time. At the time I was conflicted on how to react, and I have since had discussions with my friend about how she felt. She empathized with him for holding that in for so many years, but she also felt extremely angry. Said it took her a long time to get over the lies and deceit for literally 25 years of her life. The kids have come around, but the mom hasn't, and it's hard to blame her. Very open-minded family, but cheating is cheating, and lies are lies. Not at the bachelor party, but I traveled with my wife, then girlfriend, to a wedding she was in. At the rehearsal I told my wife there is something going on between the bride and the maid of honor. She laughed. 2 weeks after the wedding the bride's Facebook goes dark. The bride and maid of honor are now living together in another state. I still talk about how I called it within an hour of meeting them. Poor groom, super nice dude. I know a guy who seemingly had his life together, great career, lots of friends, beautiful fiancée. He had a tendency to drink too much while partying, and a few weeks before the wedding he woke up in the hospital with serious injuries due to a non-automotive drunken accident. The scariest part for him was that he didn't remember a thing past leaving the party to walk home. Did he fall and hit his head? Did someone attack him and leave him for dead? The thought of that scared him, and he decided to sober up. It also caused him to reflect on his life, and he realized his fiancée was manipulative, controlling, and he'd never be happy living with someone like that. He has some long-term damage from the injury, but he's still sober, spends much of his free time for a charitable cause, and dodged a serious bullet, a bad marriage, as a result of that horrible injury, so he oddly came out ahead in the end. Not because of the party, but day of the wedding groom's family is patiently waiting. Bride's family hasn't shown. Bride's mother finally arrives and says that bride has discovered groom has a second fiancée in another state and wedding is off. Rehearsal dinner photos on Facebook and someone tagged the wrong girl assuming that was his fiancée he had been talking about, except it was the other fiancée. So bride sees her tagged as someone else and messages from out of town friends about can't wait to meet her. Why wasn't I invited? My dad and his friends took a buddy bike canoe to an island to get drunk the night before the wedding. He told them all he didn't want to go through with it, but couldn't figure out how to get out of it. When he woke up in the morning, they had stranded him on the island. He missed the wedding. His buddies were branded as the idiots. Groom-to-be was relieved. Wedding photographer here. This happened with a couple back in 2015. Night before the wedding, all the bridal party got together at the hotel, partied, and drank a lot. I show up the next morning 8 AM after a 2-hour drive to be told by the hotel receptionist that there was not going to be a wedding. Apparently a large fight broke out between the groomsmen and bridesmaids. Money to pay then vendors were stolen. The ceremony was supposed to be at 11 a.m. that day. After about 2 minutes of WTF is going on here, nobody called and told me. I called the bride's mother, and she stated that she was off to pick up the bride and groom, sit them down, and still try to have a wedding. Fast forward a couple hours, the groom showed up drunk out of his mind around 10 a.m. Guests were already showing up. The bride finally showed around 11:30, none time, and there was a ceremony at 1 p.m. Yes, they still got married. The groom was drunk the whole day. The couple argued a ton, and the groom also felt up his mother during the mother-son dance. Needless to say, it was an eventful day. One of the groomsmen got into a huge fight with the groom because he brought up the fact that his future wife cheated on him a few years prior. This is true, but it was water under the bridge by that point. Anyway, groom got really angry and said don't bother coming, then started reconsidering the marriage at all. Anyway, the next day they had sobered up and apologized to each other, so the wedding went ahead. She did in fact cheat on him in the end several years later though. Once a cheater, always a cheater. My close friend from high school thought it would be a good idea to marry this so handsome and mature guy about 15 years older than her after only knowing him for 6 months. Didn't have a problem with the ages, I prefer older men myself, but with that being said, I know some of those men only seek after girls our age because of their immaturity. It was the Wednesday before their bachelorette/bachelor parties, and the three of us were having dinner at one of them and our favorite spots together. I guess his order of well done steak came out improperly cooked, and he just lost it on the waiter. Demanded the chef in front of him to basically berate and call him incompetent and unable to do his job in a Michelin star awarded kitchen. I look up at my good friend, and she is just borderline tears. I'm guessing going over every little tick or remark he's made in the past, and then imagining a future with him. She called it off after the bachelor parties. My old roommate is the sweetest girl you'll ever meet, so it wasn't any surprise when guys were into her, and she struggled to turn them down. There was one guy in particular who was really weird. He spent months pursuing her, and she kept politely turning him down and eventually had to be clear that she only regarded him as a friend. Then he took it upon himself to become her best guy friend, and took it to a creepy level. Like when she brought a new boyfriend around, and this guy insisted the boyfriend had to fill out an application and get approved by him before he could date my roommate. Weird ownership stuff that lasted 4 years. And it's very clearly all on his end, because she never initiates hanging out or mentions him when he's not around or really seems to enjoy her time with him. So fast forward a couple years and this guy's dating someone. He makes sure my roommate approves, and she's constantly being brought along as a third wheel on dates and to everything they do. My roommate's approval is necessary, and he wants to make sure these two women are really good friends. He'd bring his girlfriend over sometimes and just ignore her to pay attention to my roommate. The couple gets engaged, and he specifically makes sure my roommate can come, as basically his best woman, and insists she drives up to the wedding with them. So they take the several-hour drive to the bride's hometown together. The details from there are a little unclear to me. The morning of the wedding, like an hour before, the bride calls off the wedding, and it's vaguely understood that she's really uncomfortable with her fiance's attachment to this girl he used to pursue really hardcore, and that she thought it would get better, but his insistence that my roommate be part of the wedding and spend all her time with them, even up to the day of the wedding, convinced the bride that he'd never give up on my roommate. So in the midst of all this, it'd make sense if he cut my roommate off in order to work at his relationship, right? Well, instead he pieces out and drags my roommate with him, and they immediately take the several-hour drive back to our college town. So basically all the bride's fears are confirmed as he runs off with the woman she was concerned about. My roommate got married a couple years later, and I think that's when he finally gave up, because he got engaged shortly after her wedding. Last year I was a groomsman in a wedding with a guy I have known for close to 15 years as a good friend. We did the typical get an iced dinner then hit the town hard kind of party. Ended up at a Top Golf, loaded out of our minds. We were having a lot of fun when we noticed that the groom was gone for longer than it takes to pee, so we went looking. Couldn't find him in the bathroom. Staff said he went outside to clear his head and have a smoke. Went out and didn't see him in the parking lot. We start going into panic mode. because he was super sloppy drunk and gets crazy. We ended up calling the bride-to-be. She got a crying phone call from him, and he said he was meeting another friend, then he hung up on her and threw his phone. Fast forward 2 hours and the bride's brother finds him, balls deep in another dude. Apparently he was holding back, that he was actually attracted to men, and that he had a secret boyfriend. Plot twist, was the bride's brother's best friend. So the wedding was called off, and he just up and moved out of the state. It was a month before my scheduled wedding, and I was getting everything ready. In the meantime, all of my close friends in my wedding party came out to celebrate my bachelor party with some drinking, floating, skydiving, etc. Well, the night before they get there, my now ex-fiancée of 8 years says that she no longer wants to go through with the wedding. So I spend the morning. My friends are there calling around to friends, family, reservation services and explaining the news, completing blindsided. Come to find out she had cheated on me and had been feeling that way for a while, but didn't share this with me until the day of my birthday, the day before my friend's visit for a few days. Needless to say, the plans changed a bit, and it turned into my birthday party instead. Was pretty awful, but I ended up having a good time with best friends. Much happier now with my soulmate, and so thankful that things worked out the way they did. What about there shouldn't be a wedding? 3 of us guys were best friends since high school. We'll say it's Billy, guy getting married. One of the 3 Anagas, Martin, me. Fast forward to about age 23. Billy is getting married to this girl who was probably 19 at the time. They started dating when she was still in high school, but I digress. Night of the bachelor party, somehow Joel and I are alone with the bride-to-be. She's got a few drinks in her and decides to seriously proposition Joel for doing it. We thought long and hard about telling Billy, but given previous experiences, we told him about an ex doing some shady crap and he proceeded to stop talking to us until they broke up. We decided against it. They did get married 6 months and he got home early from work and walked in on her in the middle of taking her clothes off in the living room with another Jew. While they might have just been starting an innocent game of Twister, he decided to divorce her. I bartend weddings fairly often and work directly with wedding planners all the time and meet with the bride and groom-to-be to talk things through and create a sense of familiarity. Each time I met the groom he just kind of seemed out of it, but I chalked it up to stress. Day of the wedding, before the ceremony, the wedding planner comes over and asks for a couple shots for herself. She doesn't drink on jobs, so I ask her why. Apparently things were about to get started, but the groom was missing and wasn't responding to phone calls, so everyone is looking for him. Then one of the bridesmaids disappears. Not long after, the brother of the groom gets a text from the groom saying he and the bridesmaid are in love and they're running away to elope, and that he'll call him after. Everyone is getting antsy waiting for things to start, and they've all been waiting like 2 hours. Now the wedding planner has to tell 150 people that the wedding is off and explain to the parents what happened. While the wedding party is consoling the bride came to the bar asking if we had seen the groom as he was needed for some photographs or cutting the cake. Can't quite remember. None of the staff had seen him, so she went outside, only to return a few minutes later in tears. She had caught the groom getting with the maid of honor, her sister. All-out family war commenced with extra guests just sitting there enjoying the buffet. Worst part was hearing the bride cry, "I can't believe this happened again." I really felt bad for her, because she was lovely.
NSFW, what's the worst thing you have witnessed on a bachelor/bachelorette party? Bride to be blowing a male stripper while everyone in her party were cheering her on, including her future mother-in-law. Louder cheers when he blew his load in her mouth. It's the future mother-in-law that made it super WTF. Finally, it's my time to shine. This one is a little different from other stories here, but it may be one of the worst things that could happen to anybody at a bachelor party, so just bear with me. The day before my brother got married, we decided to have a really small bachelor party with just a few guys and go skydiving. We knew of a small place that had a small hangar outside of a small city and decided that this would be the place since we could do it for a small price. It was me, my brother, my sister, and another friend that was coming from upstate, and we had an appointment at 5 p.m. for our jump. Long story short, The other friend left hours ahead of time to make sure he would arrive on time, but had major car problems and then got stuck in traffic, making him about an hour late instead. We were communicating during all of this and trying to decide whether we should wait or just go ahead and jump without him. Finally, we decided to ask the staff if there were any groups after us that we could trade appointments with so we could wait for our friend. Well, as fate would have it, there was a group of exactly 4 just after us, and 4 in our group, remember? So after the other party agreed to swap, they just switched us times and we had the later appointment. They were excited to be able to go sooner than they thought. My brother and I had gotten there early and we were having a great time watching the planes go up and the jumpers come down. They would go up 4 at a time, 2 jumpers and 2 instructors jumping in tandem, and would land right in front of the hangar. It was fascinating for me to see how they would come in so fast, then just at the last minute they would pull up and land like a bird or a parachuter. Anyway, the first 2 of the group we swapped came in just fine, and my brother and I went out to watch the other 2 jump before it was our turn to strap into the harnesses. Fast forward, we saw them jump, we saw one of them deploy their chutes, but the other fell way further. I remember thinking, wow, I hope I get an instructor that lets me fall that far. That looks way more fun. Eventually their chute deployed, but as soon as it did they started going into an uncontrolled spin. They were coming in hot and I was waiting for them to pull up like all the others had, but they never did. I heard a scream, they slammed into the ground, and a cloud of dust shot up about 6 feet into the air. They were out in the weeds nowhere close to the landing pad. The weird thing is that there were no staff outside watching, and my brother, my dad, who was there to watch us jump, and I were the only ones to see them hit. I ran and told the staff what happened and then we ran out into the weeds to find them. They were broken, both unconscious, face down in the dirt. They had cuts and gashes, some big enough that I could see bone, but there wasn't a lot of blood anywhere. I assume because their hearts stopped so quickly. We wanted to start CPR, but their bodies were so tangled in the harnesses that we had to get the seatbelt cutters from their packs and start cutting the straps apart so we could roll them over. One of the weirdest parts of the experience was cutting the straps and noticing that there was poop splattered across the harnesses. We performed CPR on the jumper and the instructor until ambulances arrived, but we learned later that both were confirmed dead at the hospital. This was the group that we had swapped. The 4 in that group were a mother and her 3 daughters. The mother died. The father had bought them the tickets as a Christmas present a few months earlier. I'm sorry that I've ruined your day like this. Needless to say, we didn't end up jumping that day. Anyway, the wedding the next morning was nice. We should probably just hire some strippers next time. TLDR, watched people slam into the ground at T 100 miles per hour and spent my first bachelor party cutting harnesses off dead bodies. Also, here's the news article for anyone that doesn't believe me. https://www.slitra.com/news/2017/08/11/2 killed in Neffy skydiving crash / The groom's best friend, 24 years old, died a horrific death in a house fire weeks before the wedding. We were all crushed. How could the wedding proceed without Richie? He was supposed to be the best man. So we gathered at a friend's house where we made sausages and desserts for the wedding, and then retreated to a cabin in the woods on the property. About 15 of us spent hours drinking beer, smoking weed, and alternately crying and laughing about Richie. It was like his unofficial wake. I know this all sounds so sad, and it was, but it was necessary. I think we all attended the wedding with a lot of weight lifted from our shoulders after spending the night before celebrating the missing guest. It was a hard night, and I still respect the groom for making his bachelor party about the one person who couldn't attend. Not really on par with worse things like I've read in the comments thus far, but was still pretty funny in retrospect. Our group arrived in Vegas for some pre-scheduled debauchery and drinking at a strip club. The groom's best man decides to get a dance in the champagne room. He comes back and we head out to gamble and drink some more before retiring to the hotel room. Next morning, while recovering from our collective hangovers, the best man's right eye was as red and puffy like a souffle. He told us the stripper used his face as washboard during his time with her. The doctor told him he had gotten crabs in his eyebrow somehow and they made their way down to his eye. Needless to say, he didn't play the part of best man. We still haven't allowed him to live that down. Late to party, but this was insane. Groom had bachelor party in the back of a bar, private room. Big room, like 50 dudes there, including his father. Parents were married. Everyone is drinking heavily. 5 strippers come in. They're basically walking around with cans of whipped cream and you pay money to lick it off of their body. Most of the guys are paying $10 and get to lick one nipple or something. The dude's father, probably in 50s, has one of the girls up on a table. She sprayed whipped cream on her crotch, she's completely naked, and he's kneeling on the floor eating her out. And this continued for minutes. Some guys were laughing. I was in shock. Total fucking shock. My buddy was at a party where they got the groom pass out drunk and got him on a plane to Kansas. This was the 70s, so no airport security. The groom came to 3 states from home with no wallet. The stripper was pregnant. Not oh she's got a little baby bump pregnant. She was flat out oh god I hope she doesn't deliver during this dance pregnant. There were a few guys that were really into it too. Whatever. Everyone has their kings. I was second choice for the best man. Which I didn't mind, less work for me. So I wandered over to the actual best man, who I was friends with, and struck up a conversation. Me: hey, this beer is great, and you did a great job with the food and liquor too. Him: thanks man. Me: so, did you notice the stripper is like 11 months pregnant? Him: shut up. Turns out that he was trying to cut some expenses and found a friend, that knew a friend, that knew a friend, that knew of this girl that stripped _really _cheap. After she was done dancing, including the one-on-one dance with the groom, she started propositioning guys. Her and some of the guys would disappear randomly. I don't know exactly what happened, and I never asked because I really didn't want to know. He brought the pitching machine to the wedding. At the bachelor party we had a stripper nicknamed the pitching machine that would shoot ping pong balls out of her hoo-ha. The best man really hit it off with her, unbeknownst to everyone else at the time. The day of the wedding he showed up with the pitching machine. I watched my boss, covered in lube, being ridden around the club like a horse, belt around his neck acting as the reins. Safe to say our office dynamic has altered somewhat. I'd say my best friend's husband's bachelor party. We went to Vegas and got home from the club around 4 a.m. We rode the elevator up with a hooker. Groom went to bed and 6 of the groom's men took turns banging the hooker. I went to bed in another room and didn't participate in the shenanigans. Woke up at 8 a.m. to used condoms everywhere and a video of them all taking turns. Another groomsman walked in at 9 a.m. saying he won $800 on craps and needed to sleep because he'd done a ton of coke earlier and should probably get some sleep. One of the GFs of the groomsmen found out and told the others' wives. Wedding had great cake though. This was my brother's bachelor party. There was a group of about 16 of us who got a private room in a local, shitty, strip club. A guy who I'll call Ed showed up, but was not invited. He was a childhood friend of my brother, but as an adult Ed had some issues, like 5 kids from 4 different mothers, and general poor decision making. Anyway, within the first hour, 2 strippers start giving us a show. They are seemingly getting really into it and start 69ing each other. Vigorously. Ed proceeds to get behind the woman on top in a 69 and licks her ass. She screams to the giant bouncer they had stationed in the private room with us, Jimmy. This guy just licked my asshole. Jimmy responds, hey, no asshole licking, and violently drags him out. Finn. Friend's bachelorette party heads to a grotty strip club, where a particularly sweaty and greased up male stripper takes a drink from the hands of one of the party, puts it on the stage and proceeds to do push-ups, dipping his dick into the drink. He'd also just put shaving cream all over himself for some reason, so to reach big blobs of that and a film of grease all floating in this girl's rum and coke, that this bloke has been dipping his knob in and out of. She takes it and downs it in one, and licks around the inside of the glass. Nearly threw up. Edit. I know you would expect it to be whipped cream he was rubbing on himself, but unfortunately it was definitely shaving cream. I distinctly saw him bring out a can of Gillette and spray it all over his chest and crotch. Frown. The best man got pissed drunk at breakfast and ate an entire banana without peeling it, and I've questioned if there is a God ever since. At a bachelorette party where the stripper dipped his dick in chocolate and went around to each woman expecting someone to give it a taste. Everyone refused. I was in Vegas for a bachelor party about a month ago. We pulled up to a card table on Saturday night and found another group of guys who were there for a bachelor party, so we got to talking. We asked which one of them was the bachelor and they kinda laughed, then said, well, he got arrested earlier today. Apparently, he got arrested for having some fun powder at a day party and tried to fight security. They said they couldn't see him until Monday after he saw a judge, so they planned to continue with the party until they could see him. Ultimately, the dealer was this Russian woman with a thick-ass accent, was listening and said, wait, he got arrested for cocaine? I thought this was Vegas. That's bullshit. I don't know what ended up happening with him, but that's who it was. This was the aftermath of my boss's best friend's bachelor party. They decided he'd sleep at our house, I'm a nanny, and live with him and his kids, so that he wouldn't see his future wife before the wedding, which was the next day. The night of the bachelor party, they informed me that groom's asshole frat bro Bill is sleeping in the house too. Whatever, it's not my house, so not my rules. Anyway, I hear them being loud as fuck when they got home and go upstairs to tell them to shut up because there are 3 kids sleeping and it's 3 a.m. Bill and groom won't stop bitching at each other. My boss tells me it's been like this all night, and when I asked why, he explains that Bill bought the groom a Backpage hooker and had her show up to the party because he thought groom deserved it. Groom freaked out, and it completely ruined the night. We managed to get them to shut up. Groom goes to sleep in the guest room, Bill on the downstairs couch, and I go back to bed. Half hour later someone opens my bedroom door, which I leave unlocked if the kids need something in the night. It's Bill and his hooker. When I ask him what the fuck he thinks he's doing, he says he didn't realize that it was my room, and then something like I'm not going to waste my $700, and I tell him to get the fuck out. I was so creeped out I locked my room and went and slept upstairs in one of the kids' rooms. When I left a wedding reception to go to another event, I asked my friends to watch out for my younger brother. My friends were drunk and they dared my brother to go knock on some limo's window that drove by. He did. Then he ran away. Then a bunch of girls opened the door and told him to come back. So he did. Then the limo drove off with my brother in it. It was a bachelorette party. My friends freaked out because they were supposed to watch my brother and he just hopped in some stranger's car that drove away. The girls in the car got my brother to eat a lifesaver off the bachelorette's nipple. Then they showed him a picture of the huge guy she was marrying the next day. He was scared for a week some guy was going to beat him up. My friend died on his bachelor weekend. He fell out the cab at the end of the night and hit his head on the sidewalk. Cops put him in a drunk cell overnight. Turned out he had fractured his skull. They let him out in the morning, but he went into a coma and died a week later. Wedding was supposed to be 3 weeks later. We ended up having his funeral then. I am completely broken up by it still. Edit. Overwhelmed by the kind messages from so many folks. And grateful for the smart discussion about when to seek medical help. This started as a story about life at its worst, it ended as one about Reddit at its best. Thanks friends. Have strippers come over, they are not strippers but escorts. Married dude fucks escort as the other girl is getting slapped by ping pong paddles in the ass upstairs in a good fight. Next day I have to sit in car and drive home with guilt-stricken married guy. My buddy's bachelor party was set to be pretty tame. No strip clubs or casinos or anything like that. He just wanted to get these massive burgers from the local burger joint walking distance from his condo and play Mario Kart 64. So after we had all stuffed our faces from these ridiculous Mondo burgers, we sat down, divvied up the teams, and each person would drink one beer, and exchanged controllers. Every single person ended up puking immediately. Once the toilet, sink, and kitchen sink were full, people were throwing up all over the place, running around looking for the least damaging spot to spew. It was obscene. Story time. This was about 10 years ago. I was working at a strip club when a bachelor group of about 10 came in, including the groom's best friend since high school, aka the best man. So they are doing the typical bachelor party at a strip club thing, but are very polite and decent dudes. Mostly just drinking and enjoying the risk with copyright atmosphere and catching up. Strip club was near the airport, pretty sure most of them had flown into town from around the country. All of them were telling us how the bride had implicitly stated no strip clubs when talking to the best man. The groom and his best man were telling a story to me and another girl hanging out with the group, about how they did a talent show in high school together. Had this whole dance routine choreographed to It Takes Two by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. They were so excited to relive it, obvious that they hadn't been able to tell this tale to fresh ears in a while. Their faces were all lit up like kids on Christmas, and they kept jumping up and showing us parts of the dance. Explaining how it was awesome because they both remembered the whole routine after all this time, and they even ended with them both doing a jazz split at the same time. So eventually they get the idea that they want to perform it on the main stage together. They excitedly ask us if we thought they could get up there and do it. Now, I thought it would be wild to see, so I go ask the manager, who promptly says no. Insurance and liability issues. Fair enough. I give the news to the dudes, who have been talking with the rest of their group, and now everyone is very on board with this performance revival plan. So when they hear the bad news, they start offering cash. As we all know, money talks, and it was a particularly slow evening. Not many patrons to bear witness. So, I go back to the manager and explain they are willing to pay. Fine, she says, $200 to rent the stage for the one song, and they have to tip the DJ to play it. $200 is pretty steep for a 5-minute song, but you know, alcohol and dudes reminiscing. The guys are happy to pay. Now, this is midsummer and all the dudes are in cargo shorts and those Tommy Bahama leather sandals. The club wasn't big on dress code aside from no hats. So these two guys get all ready to take the stage, and the DJ puts the song on. These two _killed it _ We all sat together watching in complete, genuine delight. I was laughing and clapping and cheering them on. We all were. It was just like they had so exuberantly relived. You could tell they were just having the time of their lives up there. And with the final moments of the song, came the jazz split. The jazz split that only the groom decided to go ahead with. I'm assuming the best man, they were all mid-30s, had second thoughts on his body's ability to not wrench itself in pain. We all watched in awe that immediately turned to horror as the groom's face bounced off the stage like a basketball. My hands clapped over my mouth and everyone just froze for a second in disbelief. Then we all rushed the stage. The dude slipped on his sandal on the come down, and knocked out his 2 front teeth. Had to be rushed to the ER. He was getting married the next day. I still wonder to this day whatever happened to him, and his group. And if they were able to explain themselves out of that one. Still, what a performance. My friend's bachelor party in Chicago. We held it in my friend's place of business, a lounge, after hours. They hired 2 strippers which were actually prostitutes. They come in with a huge dude packing a big-ass gun in his belt. He sits down and smokes blunts the entire time. The girls literally went around the room giving everyone blowjobs. Like not in private, but just going in a circle. My one buddy decided he's going to eat the stripper's ass while she's giving head. This is like 5 minutes into the party, everyone is sober. I'm in shock. My turn comes around and I want nothing to do with it. The stripper says I can take her in back and have sex instead if I want. I respectfully decline. Eventually she gets to the groom and he doesn't really seem into it either. Peer pressure gets to him and he reluctantly gets a blowjob in the bathroom. All my friends make him open the door so they can watch a stripper sit on a toilet and give him head while they talk to him the whole time. At this point I'm chit-chatting the security guy on the couch. They end the show by sticking Roman candles in their ass and pussy, and put on a fireworks show. Imagine 2 naked women on their back with Roman candles in each hole, sitting across from each other shooting fireworks at their naked bodies. Why? Yeah. Then they go down on each other and my booty-munching friend goes back for round 2. That's when I decided I'd had enough and pack it in. You can't make this shit up. We had an ongoing rule through the weekend that if you were holding a pint, and someone managed to get a nominated coin into it, you had to down it immediately. It was, I think, a Brazilian real. Whatever it was a big gold coin. Significant diameter and a good, sturdy thickness. Anyway, one of the chaps ended up swallowing the coin along with the beer. I'll never forget the look of realization on his face. And I can imagine the other look on his face a couple of days later. The groom being coerced, with money, to have one of the strippers pee on his face. Edit. It was only about $100. Either most of the money had already been spent or the groom has a bit of a fetish. Edit 2.0. There was another gent attending that had convinced himself that others would give him money to go through the same thing with the second stripper. He was a little distraught when no one offered him any money after his golden shower. Stripper number 2 had some very glowing, cloudy P2. Back in the 80s my friend's brother's bachelor party was the first I'd ever been to, and me and my friends were all about 19. It was a SHE volunteer firehouse. The skanky bartender doubled as the evening's entertainment, and at one point stripped naked, laid the bride's father on the floor, sat on his face, and then proceeded to blow the groom. It was far from anything erotic or cool, just sad and nasty, and not the good nasty, either. My friends and I were like, this can't be good, and sorta noped out of there at that point, so I can't tell you what happened next, but I doubt anything good happened. Edit. Sorry I've been traveling for the past week and didn't see all the replies. More details I'm not sure if the bride ever found out but the wedding happened. To no one's surprise, the marriage barely lasted a year before disintegrating. The father of the bride was shot and killed a year later by a sibling during a family dispute, so there were a lot of issues, to say the least. Had a friend hit $250,000 on a $5 slot machine at a Shreveport casino on his bachelor party 2 weeks before the ceremony. With his newfound wealth, he decided to ask his fiancée copyright to sign a prenup. She refused. She had referred to it as her money from the first moment she heard the good news. And so, he walked away. Everyone hated him for it. He was practically excommunicated from all our social circles. 10 years later and she's filed bankruptcy twice. In hindsight he made the right decision. Girl I went to high school with didn't want her husband to have some random stripper at his party that will probably give him some disease, so instead she got her little sister, 20 at the time, to dance at the party instead. Not because she could trust her sister to not screw her husband, but because she knew her sister didn't have any diseases. Yeah. Little sister stripped. Then gave him a BJ. Then got on top and fucked him. In front of all the other guys. We just watched in silence. It wasn't erotic, but more of a curiosity. Okay, this is gonna be a weird one. Basically a girl in my town married and was having her bachelorette party 4 days prior to her wedding. The party started off fun and, of course, everyone got drunk quite quickly. But later that evening, her 4 best friends had a special surprise for the bride. They got into a hotel room to find a stripper from England. Bride was from Germany. This fact will be relevant later on. Well, one thing led to another and the girls started to make out with each other and then with the stripper. Suddenly one of the bridesmaids pulls out a bag of cocaine and they wanted to try it. What is the best way to snort cocaine during a bachelorette party? Of course, off of a stripper's dick. After they got high, a few girls had sex with the stripper, one of them being the bird's best friend, married and a mother of a 9-year-old. But now comes the best part, the stripper filmed it all. The girls knew about this and even hold the camera his phone. After that night, the stripper left the country and was not seen again. The bride married her husband 4 days later and no one wanted to talk about that night again. About a week after the marriage, the stripper shows the video to some German guy in a bar in England. Turns out this guy actually knew the girls and was even at the wedding. One thing led to another and the video ended up being on Pornhub and several other porn sites. It still is on there. Oh yeah. And of course they got divorced a few days later. Edit. This whole story blew up in Germany in a social network that many people use around here called Yodel. When you find the video you will see all these comments that they came there from Yodel. It is a crazy story and it is even crazier that I see her every day in our small town. Sorry for all my grammar and spelling mistakes. I'm really tired and English is obviously not my first language. Buddy of mine went old school and had his bachelor party the night before the wedding. Right around 1 a.m. I get a call from my husband, who is a groomsman. Babe, you need to come get us. Now. Why? Eric got punched by a stripper. The groom had a large T-shaped bruise right above his eye where the girl's ring hit him. Next day it was worse. Once again got a call for aid from the husband 15 minutes before the ceremony. To date that was the best makeup I've ever done. Edit. To answer several questions. T-shaped bruise. As in cross-shaped. As in Jesus. She was wearing a crucifix ring. Why did he get punched? Stripper 1 was going after stripper 2 who was trying to steal stripper 1's tips. Very drunk groom dodged. The wrong way. Girl I can confirm no. Security footage exists and I saw it sober. No, I don't have access and cannot post it. How did I see it? Stripper 2 pressed charges on stripper 1. The bachelor party was too drunk to be useful and identify each other in the footage, so I did. Why did I get involved? I was the maid of honor. So several years ago, while at his bachelor party, my buddy, the groom, got it on with a stripper. Shortly after getting married, he found out his wife, at her bachelorette party, had slept with a male stripper. Here's where it gets crazy. Fast forward a few years and they are still together, on vacation somewhere, and they run into the guy who had fucked my buddy's wife at her bachelorette party. He had gotten married. His wife? The stripper who fucked my buddy at his bachelor party. Apparently they were both attending the same college at the time when my buddy was getting married, and they were both doing, side jobs, to make extra cash. Craziest thing I've ever heard about in my life. On mine right now. Nothing crazy but my baby sister brought a crock pot. She is now making chili in my hotel room. Stripper ran out of whipped cream to put on her bits. We started grabbing random condiments like mayonnaise and ketchup. She rubbed the ketchup all over her snatch and shit got weird. She had a panic attack and ran to the bathroom then disappeared. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. Further recollections, I'm fairly certain she was coming down from her latest pick-me-up and it all hit her when she looked down and saw her nether region smothered in ketchup while a gang of drunken idiots laugh at her in the wee hours of the morning. That's got to be someone's rock bottom. Hi, I'm on the opposite end of this. I used to be a dancer years ago. One night, a rather adventurous friend of mine asked me if I would like to do a bachelor party with her. Needing some extra money, I agreed and we drove down to the meeting place. It ended up being at some sort of hall, metal chairs with cheap fabric backing and the like. We drove about an hour in rural country to get there. It's the four of us, myself, V, and our two bodyguards. We're paid $1,000 to do a girl-on-girl dance. Nothing very extravagant, just some light belt whipping and whipped cream and chocolate play. Consisting of theatrics only. We would steal the belt from the groom, spank random guests and eventually wrap the belt on his neck and ride him like a pony in panties so his buddies could really whip his ass too. We put on a fun show, guys loved it, made an extra $600 in those 30 minutes, rinsed off and dressed in a sexy outfit to go to floor dances. Holy fuck, was I just simply not ready for the next act. Edit. These were subcontracted girls who I didn't know at all. They came from a different area and were not my friend and I. These girls started off purely playful, decent dancing and hot bodies. They start getting hot with each other, actually burying their faces in muffs, teasing, etc. But then, oh god, then they whipped out the double header. It was a black dong about 3 feet long, probably 2 inches thick. They go at each other hardcore, until they're ass to ass with each other and the best man is doing the legwork by rocking the dildo bow. He was a pretty good metronome, guys hollering, throwing money and laughing, spraying beer keg foam over them, pictures and such, etc. She shit. I don't just mean it plopped out or sprayed, she had a huge fucking shit. It was bubbling, fart bubble visibly popping, sewer stink, pouring out like a bad chocolate fountain with too much milk type shit. It was everywhere. The other girl got away from her jet mostly, but yanked away so quickly she still had the dildo in her ass and was dragging it behind her on all fours like some damaged dog. They performed for $500. Don't buy cheap strippers. There were strippers who came to the hotel room and were getting most of the guys super horny. They left and everyone got super drunk and people passed out. I was laying down but still awake when I noticed a head bobbing up and down. I slowly turned and opened my eyes and the groom is blowing the best man. The best man taps his shoulder and gives a no face and the groom doesn't stop. Then after the best man is done coming, the groom takes the best man's dick and makes sure he got all the cum by licking what was left of it off of his dick. I will never forget that image. The best man then pulls up his pants and they go to sleep. Meanwhile I'm freaking out in my head while I am laying there. I didn't sleep, didn't tell anyone about it until now. I didn't see it, but my coworker told me about it. His brother was getting married and they hired some stripper/hooker for the night. He said cut to a couple hours later and they all were in a circle with their dicks out, as she's blowing them one after the other. I think what made the story much more memorable to me was how elated he was to tell me, with a big smile on his face laughing. So my best friend got married a few years back. We threw this crazy bachelor party and rented a cabin in the Pocono Mountains. Weekend of drinking, smoking and debauchery. We hear about this crazy strip club that will shuttle you to and from your rental. Awesome. We get a ride in this white Dodge van that 2 bouncers come pick us up. We get there and it looks like your typical strip club. Bars and tables, girls dancing on stage and walking around. It's packed and obvious there are multiple bachelor parties going on. So we're having a good time watching guys be embarrassed on stage and whatnot. Some of the guys in our group are chatting and laughing and whispering grilly type stuff. No sooner am I asking what's going on when the hottest female I have ever laid eyes on comes up and start grinding on me. I mean really going at it. I'm enjoying myself when she leans back, grand my junk through my pants, and whispers $100 and I'll get you off. It's hitting me as she goes on. Holy fuck. We're in a whorehouse. I look around and every girl's a fucking 10 plus. I'm trying to hold back a seizure mixed with a raging mega boner. Can't do it, I think to myself. I'm married. Fuck, almost all of us are married. We all sorta agree not to do anything we would regret. So just dances. So the night goes on pretty uneventful and we realize one of our gang is missing. The groom's brother-in-law. After like 2 hours he shows up, hair disheveled, a daze in his eyes and a big grin in his face. We're like, dude, where the fuck have you been? To which he replies, I don't know, but I'm out like this. The funniest/most awkward part was our ride back to the cabin. Amongst a drunken group someone blurted out about fucking a stripper. The driver perked up and asked what he said. I butted in and said nah, he's fucking wasted man, he's just kidding. The driver, who was a bouncer, says whatever man, but you should probably clean your dick with bleach and get tested. Dead fucking silence the rest of the ride back. The strippers started fight each other and pulled out a gun lol. We had to kick them out and expedite our party bus plans. Not me. But my sister's bachelorette party had a stripper whip his dick out and stick it in a bride-to-be's mouth on stage. I'm not sure if that's normal for male strippers, but good lord. Also, my sister got a lap dance and ended up with blood on her dress somehow. Sketchy. Edit. There was another bachelorette party there. My sister wasn't the one with the dick in her mouth. This isn't going to be anywhere near as horrific as what I'm sure most people will have to say here, but my friend invited an absolute scumbag to her hen party about 7 years ago. Her reputation was that she was trash, but she showed up like a different person and was actually very nice the whole night. She was on her best behavior, buying rounds of drinks, showing a genuine interest in conversations, the whole works. She even offered to look after the coats and bags while we got up to dance. After the first song, we all turned around to find her rifling through everyone's belongings. She locked eyes with us while she had one hand full of banknotes and the other full of someone's cigarettes. She wasn't at the wedding. Reading this, I felt the need to inform my husband that I didn't cheat on him during my bachelorette party. Once he figured out why I was telling him this. Him. Oh. Okay, dear. Me. This is when you tell me you didn't cheat on me either. Him. I got drunk and played video games. I don't think there were any girls there. Deleted. Actually, this one involved a former GF of mine during the reception. She went into the parking lot and received anal from the groom. The bride caught them in the act. Then the bride put on someone's cowboy boots and kicked the living shit out of her. This is a small town and she moved away for a few years, but everyone in town knows who she is. The happy couple stayed together. I used to work at one of the busiest bars in my city, very popular for stag/hen nights from all over the country/neighboring countries. We saw some really messed up stuff with stag/hen nights. Worst stag do we had were all very loud, very aggressive, and very drunk. They booked out a room upstairs and hired in strippers. We later found the stag, bachelor, going down on one of the strippers, in the middle of the bar downstairs. When security stepped in, he tried to fight all of them, unwise. The worst hen was much worse, ended up having to give a statement to the police. There were about 20 women ages ranging from 20s to 60s all dressed up as minions, with the hen, bachelorette, being a minion in a dress. They started off alright, pretty loud, but you can't blame them for that. But as the night went on, the hen got extremely drunk. I was on the floor collecting glasses when I walked past a crowd gathered around one of the ground level speakers. I stepped in to see what was going on, but I was not prepared. The hen was sitting, legs splayed, underwear gone, with about 3 different people's hands all having a feel. She seems to be loving the attention, beckoning people to join in and waving at the people filming. At this point I call security over and they disperse the crowd, and bring the hen into one of the quiet areas, give her some water, make sure she's okay. She seems happy, but the rest of the party are either arguing with each other or crying. Her mother, also at the party, was definitely not happy. But the worst part is when one of the people filming came into the quiet area to tell her that he knows her fiancé copyright, and had already sent him the video. She then orders security to phone the police and changed her story from just a bit of fun on my hen night to I was raped. The whole thing was awful. We were a bunch of nerds in the 90s. Set up a giant LAN party for our buddy getting married. Someone hired a stripper. She gave us a list of things to get, including a banana. Someone brought a plantain instead. Stripper arrives and is older than all of us. We tried to convince her to play Doom. She would not. Half the party just played video games while the other half awkwardly tried to interact with the stripper. She was not impressed with the plantain. After about 20 minutes she said she would do something really special for the groom if she could leave early. We agreed. She put him in a mask with a dildo for a nose and fucked herself with it. Super awkward. Edit. I think a lot of you are under the impression that we were somehow mean to this stripper. We just asked her to play Doom. She said no thanks, then put on her show. When we gave her the plantain she just said that is not a banana and put it aside. She gave 0 fucks about the guys that just wanted to play computer games. She was it well and we were very nice to her. No strippers were harmed in the making of this comment. Bachelor party in Chicago, strippers hired to come to a house. By the end of the night, one of the strippers ended up having anal sex with an attendee in the bathroom. He pulled out and left a poo-poo mushroom stamp on the toilet seat, then the whole party went to have a look as the stripper sat in the corner crying. Edit. My first gold. Thanks. Edit 2. I think I need to clarify. The stripper was crying of embarrassment. It eventually became a talking point and her 2 fellow strippers had a good laugh about it. She was not raped. This was at midnight-ish and the party continued after that for many hours. She stayed and had fun after the fact. Whole party got drunk. Best man admitted to having slept with the bride. Massive bar fight followed. Groom lost one of his front teeth. The wedding still happened, but he kept his mouth shut in all the pictures. Best man was nowhere to be seen and the title was given to the groom's_other_brother. Edited because people seemed to have an issue with the word ensued. My nephew was getting married and we're 3 years apart in age, so I was his best man and we're both very inexperienced with finding strippers at this point. So we go to a strip club and ask a bouncer how we could find a stripper.